afternoon. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the regular commission meeting this February the 18th. Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Marker.
Here.
Deputy Vice Mayor Long.
Here.
Vice Mayor Cassell. Here. Commissioner Burns.
Here.
Mayor Kearney.
Here.
We have a quorum.
I don't answer to anything. Here. If you could please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. You may be seated. Okay, agenda approval.
Could I pull 6B, please?
6B.
Yes, as in boy.
Okay. All right. Anyone else?
7AA.
That'll be 7AA, correct?
Thank you.
Any others? I would like to add a resolution, which we were drafting today, which essentially is a zoning in progress resolution, which affects the aggregation of properties during the pendency of what we're doing here. It's really taking aggregation of properties off the table while we're debating all this, because I don't want to give people time to I mean, right now this is an important feature of what we're trying to do, and that's what the purpose of this resolution is for, which I would like to add to the agenda. Can I
Hang on, may I ask a question?
Sure.
You're talking about right now, so from this day on, we would put a hold on aggregation of property. Why don't we just add the other items that you wanted as well, the demo and the facade?
They're there.
It's on there.
It's all together
I
on
put
this?
them all on.
Okay, well, that wasn't what was said. I'm
Put 'em
sorry,
all on.
because I support that for sure.
I need a second.
Second.
Oh wait, I mean I can't.
Is
make
it just to discuss
well,
it?
I'm adding.
You're simply just adding something to the agenda.
So
There's no
with
objection.
consensus to add it to the
Yeah,
thing?
absolutely.
Great.
Yes.
Okay, I'm trying to learn what we just learned, and you weren't here, so I don't know what I'm supposed to say.
Mayor, can we make it 7G so that we can have a short discussion at the end of the agenda? And I'll have time to give everybody the resolutions.
That'll be fine. Do it at the end. Correct. Okay. All right. So we have. I need a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. So we got that done. But for all of you who are here, we had a Robert's Rules of Order, seminar before you all got here, trying to figure out what the order of things we're supposed to do, et cetera, et cetera. So we've got the agenda approved. We now have presentations. Laura Simon. A presentation by the Downtown Development Authority concerning a follow-up regarding branding and marketing considerations. And Susan Boyd.
Hello, yes. So I have, good evening, everyone, mayor, commissioners, city attorney, city manager, community. I'm Laura Simon. I'm with the Downtown Development Authority. And I have Suzanne Boyd here with me, our director of marketing for the team. And we're here tonight in our capacity as overseeing the campus of Old School Square. That we have. All right, so I'm just gonna pull all of this up. So we wanted to bring this back to you as we met back at the end of October with our rebrand discussion and presentation. And since that time, we heard what you said. We had took back all of the feedback from not only what was discussed here between yourselves and our board, along with community input, other stakeholder input, came through and really went to work and came back with some recommendations which we want to share with you tonight. So we want to take away from today really some consensus as our proposed way to move forward with this. So I'm going to invite Suzanne up here to give us an overview of what we're going to present and take to the public, and we'll go through that with you all. But what we heard was that there was obviously we're looking at a branded house. We want to look at it as we look at the campus of Old School Square, coming up with one brand for the entire campus of Old School Square. It needs to be owned by the city, not solely the DDA, so that's why we're here. Obviously, we want to, just the entire city, not just the city leadership, but our community as well. Each venue should have its distinct personality. It needs to involve the public and really to consider the work that the Creative Arts School branding has included, as well as other work that's been done too. So I'm going to turn it over to Suzanne to give, and we'll tag team on this, but really to give the soul of the presentation. So Suzanne?
So we went back after that last meeting and we did some revisions to some logos. We came up with a new logo, and then we decided, you know what, we're going to go with a totally different concept. We really thought about the key buckets that you all wanted to hit, and so we came up with a new concept, and this is our new recommendation: a legacy through local art, reimagining Old School Square. Harness the creative spirit of Delray Beach by inviting local artists to create a watercolor illustration for the new Old School Square logos. Through a public voting campaign, the community will play a central role in selecting the design that best reflects our shared history, our vibrant culture, and the vision for the future. This initiative will unite residents, celebrate local talent, and establish a timeless emblem that honors our past while setting the tone for the next 100 years of innovation and connection. Together, we'll create a branded house that embodies the heart of Old School Square. What does that look like? Well, we have a visual concept for you all. So this is just the concept that our graphic designer came up with, Maureen, who you all met during the last meeting. This is not any of the buildings at Old School Square. This is actually just a building that we found on the internet, but it's a representation of what we would like to create for the Old School Square logo. So, and then the font at the bottom could change as well. So the whole thing could change based on what we're getting from the artist. This is the transition design that we are currently using in all marketing for Old School Square. And as you can see, we already had a branded house. This has a different emblem, a different logo for each of the different venues, and that will also be similar to what we're recommending for this new concept. So what we're going to be doing, first of all, is putting out a call to artists and asking them to give us an idea of what they think embodies Old School Square. That could be the cupola at the top of the Crest Theater. It could be a part of the building. It could be part of the landscaping. We really don't want to be too restrictive on what we're expecting from the artist, but we do want something that embodies the campus for the OSS logo. We have come up with some criteria. This is a look at that criteria, and we did this specifically because, as you all know, when you're creating a logo, you have to be able to reproduce that across multiple different marketing avenues, whether that's print, whether that's on a t-shirt, whether that's in a digital signage. So you have to have, we are creating some criteria around this. And then we're also asking the artists to create within a specific color palette. We've given them 2 different options. The first one is a little more vintage and muted, and then the brighter option as well. All right, so I'm just going to take you quickly through the steps. Step 1 would be the call for artists. We would open requests for South Florida artists to create this watercolor illustration of the Old School Square campus, and it is a cultural arts center, so it really is about engaging our art community. We would put that out across all our platforms as well. Step 2 would be the selection process, and that would include choosing the top 2 artists, the top 2 finalists. And then those 2 finalists would go before the public, and the public is invited to choose the winner. So the artist with the most votes is then selected as the winner. From that point, we will create the logos and the artwork. So the winning artist will be notified, and then begins the work of refining the OSS logo that they've created, and then also building additional logos for each of the venues, whether that's actually painting the Cornell Art Museum, actually painting the Crest Theater, or if it's something else that they envision. But each of the different venues will have a separate look, still part of this branded house though. And then we'll, of course, create the brand guidelines to represent the entire campus. Step 4 is the fun part, the celebration and the big reveal. As we all know, parts of Old School Square turned 100 this year. So it makes sense for us to unveil this new look, this new brand for Old School Square, as we're also celebrating the next 100 years of the campus. This is just a look at the proposed timeline, what we think each of these steps are going to take. So that would put us about 18 to 20 weeks out for that celebration and public reveal. Okay, any discussion, questions?
Any questions? Commissioner Casal?
No, I mean, this is lovely. You're taking it in a whole new direction, and I think in retrospect, that's probably a great idea. Thank you for taking that initiative, and I'm excited. Thank you.
Commissioner Marker?
Yeah, this looks really great. You know, I've got the marketing background, so I love what you've done here. You ticked all the boxes. The color palettes look interesting. And I think getting the community involved in this is going to create an element of fun and excitement for the town. So this is great, guys. I'm all on board.
Commissioner Burns?
Yeah, no questions, but thank you. It looks great. You went back, you made some changes to it, and thank you for what you've done. It looks good. I'm excited about it. I got a different feel from that one than before.
Commissioner?
I love this idea. I'm very partial to watercolor. I think it's just a beautiful medium. And when I think of Old School Square, I think of the plein air group and all the folks painting and the contests they have. We have so many great watercolor artists in Delray. I hope a lot of them, get involved with this. It'd be great to have a Delray artist who does this. But I love the vibe. I think you guys went outside the box with this, and I really appreciate it. I think this is, and I love that we're involving the community. This feels like a Delray thing. You caught the vibe here, so I'm really excited about this. Well done.
I want to thank you. We all had a meeting of 3 or 4 weeks ago where we discussed maximum engagement, maximum this, and you've come back with a great thing. I'm so happy we had that meeting, and I'm very excited. Now that the public is going to vote, I got a shot at maybe getting one of my things in, but we'll see. I can't even. No, okay. Well, they don't like my stick men. Anyway, thank you so much. Thank you so much. We look forward to seeing. We look forward to the next phase.
Awesome. Well, thank you,
Thank
Raj.
you.
Thank you.
I could dance. Okay, the next item is the Green Implementation Advancement Board, the 2025 Annual Report. Kent, you are on.
That looks so good.
Thank you very much. I'm Ken Edwards, the Sustainability Officer for the City of Delray Beach. I'm very happy to be here this evening. The annual report is always a pleasure. We're also joined by several people in the audience that have come to see the presentation, and I especially wanted to recognize immediate past president or chair of the board, Sarah Lucas, and also current member Adam Jones that are here. And for the presentation tonight, that will be given by Evan Oriana, the current chair of the Green Board.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. My name is Evan Oriana. I'm the chair of the Green Implementation Advancement Board, and I'm going to be just going over our year in review and talking about some of our future priorities. So this first slide, you'll see our main work was with the Climate Action Plan, which we sent a memo to the Commission a while back. These 3 other sections, environmentally preferred purchasing, green building ordinance, and microplastics, and pretty much everything else that we've been working on falls within or has to do with the Climate Action Program or plan in some scope or in some manner. So just to start kind of reviewing it, the Climate Action Plan, which I'm probably going to refer to as CAP throughout this presentation to shorten my words, was the recommendation made to the Commission in July of 2023 and again in March of 2024 to really follow the lead of our neighboring cities and other counties to have some sort of concrete plan put in forth as we experience other effects from increasing storms, growth, and other things to mitigate issues from climate, other issues. I think one of our biggest achievements this year, working with Kent and the Office of Sustainability, was the CAP survey, which was sent out to and responded by over 350 residents and citizens of Delray Beach, to really trying to get an equitable view of what are the issues, what are they concerned about, and what we should really focus on, which was really a success with more than 80% of the respondents supported taking action. And we saw an overwhelming trend of wanting the city to lead as example, which I feel we've done a great job with so far. Ongoing future priorities, issues based out of that survey. We want to identify goals for a city-specific climate action plan. And then you're going to see this in pretty much every slide. We have a strong commitment to equity and educational outreach, making sure that this plan not only benefits one area of the city, but all the residents and us as a whole. So one of the first sections in the plan is energy in the built environment. We're all no strangers to the green building ordinance. Back in 2019, the recommendation was to start this, and since then it has been adopted. The main goal is to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, as well as following the regional climate action plan set forth by South Florida to really reach that reduction by the year 2030. Buildings pretty much account for more than 40% of the energy use, so the main goal is how we can reduce that, how we can build things better, and make a greener city towards the future. The ongoing priorities, obviously, again, energy saving, performance, contracting, getting data. Data collection is probably the most important when it comes to the green building ordinance to make sure it's working. Reevaluate it, and again, just making sure that we educate the public to why we want to do this, why it's important to be concerned about emissions and moving forward with greener buildings. As far as green infrastructure and natural environment, the Green Board and the Department of Sustainability has excelled in the tree planting program with more than 6,000 trees in 3 years, which particularly kicked off a lot well with the January implementation of the tree drop-off program, allowing residents who just can't make it to the lines and other events to get trees that they can plant in their property. And always, tree protection, maintenance, not just giving trees and letting them grow, but making sure they're growing with success and evaluating the areas where they were planted. Future priorities are, continuing that, but really focusing on the areas of low canopy zones to reduce not only the heat island effect, but also improve our neighborhoods and our green spaces. The removal of any dead or critical condition trees, working with the city arborist and forester. Habitat restoration, whether it's invasive species removal, maintaining our our award-winning beautiful dunes in Delray, and just educating the public on other issues like coral reefs and other things that protect our coastlines. I said invasive species. And again, outreach. I think throughout all this, equity and outreach, making the public aware of why we want to do this is one of the key things, and leading by that example. As far as waste, we made a recommendation to support legislation to address the impacts of plastic pollution, specifically the emerging issue of microplastics, which we are all no stranger to, but it's estimated we have about a credit card worth of plastic in our bodies at all time just from the years of using them and the degradation of that. In January, we sent a memo to the commission regarding environmentally preferred purchasing. Again, having the city reduce plastic, single use mainly, in their purchasing, leading by an example, was an overwhelming response from the survey, and one we want to make sure we stick to. The ongoing priorities continue that waste reduction. The EP3 memo, which is that purchasing memo, we support it. We hope you will. Reducing the single-use plastics, it was never about straws. It starts with straws. Mm-hmm. So we hope we can all get more education around that and understand why we focus on certain things. And also making sure we're aware of state legislation priorities that will allow us to make decisions at a city level and keep the freedom in our control. Expanding recycling, data collection, whether it's residential, recycle right events, all that outreach to the city, I think by talking to our citizens and really telling them how the right way to recycle, we can maximize our efforts in that area. Transportation, we worked on pedestrian and bicycle master plan with the Palm Beach Transportation Planning Agency, the countywide transportation master plan, all these things we want to consider into the climate action plan because, as we know, walking and biking along the city reduces greenhouse gas, so it's all pretty much related to the main overall scope. Future priorities, the shuttle, the freebie, worker transportation, really utilizing the Tri-Rail station as a drop-off for workers in and out of the city, having transportation provided to them to make it to the downtown areas where they work and basically make our city great. The fleet fuel efficiency, and again, outreach and education. With water, we want to be, with the CAP program, we really want to be aware of these new extreme rainfall events, specifically an example of what happened in Broward County in April when a simple deluge of rain pretty much shut down the entire county. Being prepared for that, water use efficiency, a conservation program, and really just hardening our water infrastructure to make sure we're prepared for any issues in the future. Which would include, improving swales, having a stormwater master plan, and really improving our stormwater infrastructure for resilience during those events. And then lastly, with everything, all these fit into climate resilience. It's no mystery that our world is changing. We have to be prepared. It's better safe than sorry, especially at a city level. So really just making sure that all these issues that we've identified overlap with the overall climate action plan, very similar to our cities to the north and south, the counties that have adopted these types of plans, and really raise the understanding of these impacts and how it's going to affect everyone at an individual level, which is where we think we can make a lot of educational strides. Future priorities, just really focusing on that stormwater, which will probably be a very big issue for cities in the future. The green infrastructure, natural environment, and of course, making sure that all of these programs work for everybody in the city and not just a few. So I thank you for the time, and if you have any questions.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from the commission? Commissioner Long?
I have a picture of trees.
Any question?
No questions. Just thank you. I know the Green Implementation Advancement Board does a lot of hard work. These are extremely important issues, and I really appreciate all the hard work and research that you guys have put into this. Thank you.
Commissioner Burns?
No questions. Thank you for your presentation.
Commissioner Casal?
Thanks. Thank you so much, and thank you to the other board members, former and current, who are here supporting, because we're so excited about this board, but we don't really see you as much as we would like, and that's unfortunate. I like what you talked about, the microplastics. I worked with one of the former head of your board, Hal Stern, on a couple of polystyrene ordinances, but as you know, we're preempted by the state, and it's very difficult to push that stuff through. But at one point we were talking with the chamber about how could we make our downtown plastic free, encouraging our businesses and what have you, and I'd really like to try and work on that. Perhaps I can work with you at some point in the future. But
Absolutely.
Anyway, thank you so much for the presentation.
Thank you. Commissioner Marker?
Yeah, hi. This is great. I love what you've been doing here. I do have a quick question. Do we have an arborist on staff?
I might have misspoke on that. Is it to get one?
Yes, it would be. I mean, we have people that work on
Yeah.
the trees, but to have one person that really crosses boundaries in departments and is a certified arborist would be one of the recommendations.
Yeah, that came up in a bunch of meetings I've had around the city. That is something we should really consider is hiring a professional arborist who could work across the town. So we should talk more about that.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you both very much. Kent, I guess you're going to sit there, right?
Yes,
We
sir.
have the presentation regarding the activities related to reef restoration.
Could I say one quick thing on this?
Certainly.
Would you mind? Because I asked for this
Excuse me,
presentation.
are you asking to be recognized?
Yes, I am. Thank you. I'm sorry. When I said may I should have said chair, may I please, versus just may I please, chair. I asked for this presentation because, as we all know, Jim Chard ran at the same time as we ran, and we've discussed before how sometimes when you're running, you meet somebody and you really know they have a fondness for the city and they have a lot to offer. And Jim is organized this group, and it's pretty amazing to sit with this group of individuals and what we're trying to accomplish. And I wanted to say thank you for keeping our meetings going, keeping us on target, and keeping us moving. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
As the commissioner said, I'm Jim Chard, and have, over the course of the last 6 months or so, pulled together an organization that I'm calling the Delray Beach Reef Restoration Consortium, to have a somewhat unique name. And we have put this presentation together for you because we believe this is very important to Delray, and the Delray could or should be the leader in restoring our reefs and saving our beaches. So just to give you some background, Florida has about 350 miles of reef, stretching from the Keys up to Port St. Lucie, and we consider them the rainforests of the sea. In other words, that's where all the babies are born and live in their early life before they emerge. But what's happened, like 97% of our reefs have been destroyed, and that's just been in the last couple of years. But we believe in the consortium there is a solution and there is hope that we will not lose these reefs. But why are they dying? Well, the major culprit is rising temperatures, We were just talking, it got to over 100 degrees down in Miami about a year ago. There are also some rampant diseases that are impacting corals. Acidification, partly from land-based runoff and other sources. And of course, we humans have done our own share of damage by walking on the reefs and chopping on the reefs. And this is true all over the world, by the way. The Great Barrier Reef, which is considered the largest living thing, is almost 50% destroyed. But why should we care? Why is it important to Delray Beach? Well, first and foremost, it protects our beaches. And believe it or not, they can, as those tiny little animals building the reefs over time, take out as much as 97% of the wave power that comes in our beaches and pulls that nice sand right back out into the ocean. But biodiversity is a big thing. I don't know if any of you dove off of Delray Beach lately, but there's not a lot down there. A few fishes swimming around the sunken ship out there, but that's about it. So the corals really are the rainforest. They do bring and recruit other animals. Ecotourism, we have the Blue Flag continuation, which we have to re-up every year, and we have sat down with the Blue Flag people, and they go through their 52 criteria, and one of them is near-shore rebuilding and restoration. Economics, literally billions of dollars result from our beaches, our seashores, and also the fishing industry in other parts of Palm Beach County. And research is showing that reefs can actually build beaches. The little pieces of the coral break off over the years and can actually build beaches, but that's still something being researched. So there's two organizations that I'm very proud to include in this presentation. The Reef Institute, Lenita Fix, who is the chair and co-founder of the Reef Institute, and Jason Bregmans, whose office is just 2 blocks away of the Michael Singer Studios. What the Reef Institute does is it has a very serious educational component, because I think that's another thing we want to tie into this is Atlantic High and education. But they rescue corals, particularly ones that are proving resilient to the diseases and the high temperatures. Then they bring them onto land in giant tanks and breed them so they can be multiplied and put back out on the reefs. We think that's in many ways better than the natural process, because you're really picking out resilient strains that you're putting out. And they have been outplanting in a number of places in Florida and in the Caribbean, and would be very good if we could do it here in Delray. This is what a coral nursery looks like. On the left-hand side, you see the tiny babies after the spawning period has occurred, and on the right-hand side, I think that's about a year's growth, Lenita?
That's a close-up of a coral.
Yeah. So Singer Studios has been involved for years and years of doing ecological, sustainable projects, a lot having to do with concrete and various forms of concrete. You see the islands here in West Palm. You see the living garden on the wall. I think that's the parking garage. It's the Simil Tribes. So they basically work outside of Delray, but when they focus on where they live here in Delray, they have come up with really unique strategies to do artificial reefs. As our consortium, we're taking 2 different routes here, the outplanting and the reef restoration with artificial reefs. And that is because the county has really separated them. So we think we can move ahead very quickly in the next few months on outplanting. We'd like to be able to say the same about the artificial reefs, but it's probably going to take more time. And as we get to it at the end, I'm going to make a call of action to have the city support us even more than they already have. So the key thing about the artificial reefs, it's 70% recycled content. And it has less of a carbon footprint than cement and other traditional ways of doing it. And it has been testing a number of different designs and textures to see which one of those are best at protecting and raising juvenile corals, fish, and animals. This is an example of a modular system that was done working together with Singer and with Reef Institute. This has been very much of a research project up right now. The idea is that it can be modular, transportable. I'm sure you've all seen the big balls of weighing tons that have to be lifted onto big barges with big cranes. That makes all of this uneconomic. But if you use a modular approach, we definitely think that the economics can make sense, particularly when we start to get in volume, and which I think also represents an opportunity for Delray from an economic point of view. I'm proud of the fact that we have Delray organizations involved in this. Beach Property Owners Association has been involved. Sandaway, everyone is familiar with, and the Historical Society, which has some very involved people. And they see that this is very much like their efforts of native plantings on land to do native plantings in the water. So, primary strategy is outplanting. Lanita and her team are ready to go. We just need a little bit of money. There's a big research component of that, including growth and survivability. And there is some concern on the part of the county that fishing lines can get entangled in these. So one of the things that I think this strategy would do would be to not only monitor the growth of the reefs, but also do some cleaning up of fish lines. The secondary strategy is, as I said, building the artificial reef. We've got to get the permits. But again, it's just a test. And this can be literally just a few feet. It doesn't have to be miles and miles. We start with the propagation. We do the outplanting. We do the research. And by we, I mean mainly the people behind me. And so our ask today is that the city could really become a partner of a sort, or an associate with this effort, and help us through some of the regulatory problems that have to be overcome. There are so many people and organizations involved with this. I think Evan mentioned it earlier, from national down to local, that having the city as a sponsor, if you will, would be very, very helpful. And I think that the city should take pride in this effort and be involved in communications just as they are with the DDA and public relations, to make sure our citizens know about this and support it. And with that, I will yield and would love to have answers to questions, and Jason would love, and Lenita would love to do so.
Thank you very much. We have any questions?
Yeah, happy to get the ball rolling here. So I look at Mr. Richwagon's hat, his blue flag hat, and I think we're the only blue flag beach on the East Coast, so we should be a leader on this front. And so thank you, Jim, and thank you to everyone. Thanks to the whole consortium for really spearheading this. I think it's really exciting.
We're glad to have Albert as part of our team too.
Awesome, awesome. We wore the right hat. That's my favorite Delray hat. So I'd like to get involved with trying to help in terms of these regulatory hurdles that you referenced. I think that the artificial reefs are a critical component of this. I think the outplanting is great, but we need to be doing the artificial reefs too. Maybe I'm not sure what that looks like. If that's a letter where we try and pitch it as more of a trial run while we test it and monitor it, or if we want to try and pitch doing some sort of meeting with the county. I'm going to see some of our county commissioners. I'm going to see Marcy on Thursday at the TPA meeting. I'm happy to sort of start the conversation casually, but I think some sort of formal dialogue between the city and the county maybe would go a long way. I don't know what that looks like or how possible that is, but I'd love to hear what my colleagues think. But if you're running into a hurdle here in terms of them being worried about line entanglement or sea turtles or whatever, I think that we could discuss that with them. I think we need to discuss that with them and find a way to make this work, at least to test it out and see if it works on a small scale. So I'd love to hear what you guys think.
Commissioner Casal?
I definitely, well, I sit in with the group, so I'm in full support. It's two separate issues, though. The outplanting of the live coral currently can only be done on a live reef. So that's one thing. And the second thing is the permitting for the design to be then placed in as its own artificial reef and hope that it develops coral, which studies have shown that the material used will allow for coral to grow. And the question just becomes in the permitting process when they will finally approve your design, as they keep on asking you to change it. So things are going along really well. And if you want me to tell you what I think the need is, it's funding. And I really think as a city, and the beach is our economic driver. Mm-hmm. It is the thing that we have that we need to protect. And we can do so in many ways. The Blue Flag program was a great step to doing that, and I was part of that program. But right now, what I think we should be talking about is potentially a grant program out of the sustainability department that can help towards some of these efforts. And a minimum donation of $40,000 could get us outplanting, and up to $100,000 could get us considerably more outplanting. And Mr. Moore, what I think is perhaps you can go with Mr. Edwards out to see Lanita's facility is amazing, and she's growing coral for the lower portion of the East Coast. When there is a coral reef that's dying, people call Lanita to come and get the coral and salvage it and spawn it and keep our coral going. And I have to tell you, we cannot underestimate the value of what you're doing. And I don't think anyone knows who you are and what you're doing and how amazing you are for our oceans. But, we value our environment and we value our oceans. And I think if we do, I hate to tell you, but we need to put our money where our mouth is. And it's really not, in the scheme of things, a lot of money. So I would like to bring this back up at the end of our evening under commission comment to ask for the city to commit to a certain amount of money, and perhaps Mr. Edwards could sponsor the grant writing program, and we could work on building up our coral reef and saving it from dying, because I would like to do that, and I think our residents would appreciate their money going towards that.
Thank you. Can I ask Mr. Chart a quick question while we have him? So we chatted earlier about this. I was under the impression you guys were running into a hurdle with ERM in terms of the permit sort of being halted or stalled out because of some concerns there that we could potentially address by lobbying them. Is that the case?
Yeah,
Or can you
I'm
clarify
careful
that?
about saying about that. Obviously, we want to work with the county.
Of course.
And it is their property, actually.
Yep.
So they definitely have to be on our side. But I think if they knew that the city was behind the effort, that they wanted to associate with it, that the county might come around.
Right.
And certainly there are things that can be done to sort of overcome their objections, like
Sure.
the fishing lines and like the turtles. I won't go into that, but there are solutions if they're willing to sit down and talk.
So, I mean, I'm on board with your idea as well, Commissioner, but I'd like to discuss a collaborative approach with the county to show them that we are in support and would like to keep having that conversation in terms of, as I think the artificial reefs are extremely important as well. So
Right.
maybe during the item at the end, we can continue to discuss that and just see how we want to go about that.
If I may, Mayor, right, because it's two totally separate things we're looking at. And also, Mr. Edwards has been part of the whole process as well, so he can give us more information about what the hurdles are. But I don't think it's just, we're being slowed down, not stopped, right?
Commissioner Burns.
Yes, just want to say congratulations on your work with the consortium. I understand and know how important coral reefs are and that they are being destroyed. And I think that, I love that analogy to rainforests of the sea. Make you understand that really, that makes it plain. But the beaches are crown jewels, so I am in support of the city supporting it in any way that we can to support it, support the project, so.
Commissioner
Thank you.
Markert.
Yeah, first of all, I want to thank all of you for the work that you're doing. Jim, you absolutely terrified me with the statistics you threw out today. It's awful to see the decay in the ocean. It's just so important to us. And to hear that the Great Barrier Reef in Australia is down to 50% is terrifying, having lived over there for 4 years. I know how important that is to them. I'm fully supportive of finding a way to make this work. I agree with what Rob said. I think we should do a collaborative effort with the county. But I agree with what Julie said. I think at the end of this meeting today, we should ask, for some money from the city so that you can get started right away, because this isn't going to snap together overnight. I know that.
No.
But I just want to thank you and your team for all the work that you're doing. The beach is critical to Delray Beach's existence. So we have to do this. It's a no-brainer, and I thank you all for taking a leadership position on that.
Great.
Thank you.
Just as a technical matter, commission comments are an agenda item, but if we want to agenda the discussion of giving money, I would recommend that we put that on the agenda and do it, because we can't really do that in comments, though I understand your position. And everybody wants to save the reefs. I have a little issue. As you know, I've been back and forth with the county on this and the Corps and some others on this. And they've turned down your project twice. Okay? I know you spent the last 3 years doing it. Well, they turned it down 3 years ago, and then they've recently turned down, I've got the email here. And based on the fact that they don't like the type of materials you're using, not the concept, but the types of materials you're using. I know you say that the near shore benefits of it, but you're talking about putting this in 60 to 80 feet of water, which isn't under the definition of near shore. But the issue, and I asked them about this, I said, what if we weighed in, what if the city weighed in on this? And they said, well, that's fine, we collaborate with all municipalities, but we don't like the design. So functionally, it's their property, and they're saying they don't like the design. Now, I mean, I am not an expert in this area at all, because I want to preserve the reefs too. I mean, we have one of the greatest, the job everybody's done in rebuilding the fishing industry off our coast has been fabulous in the last 10 years. And the other option that we were provided would be for Delray to try to go out and get a permit on its own. It couldn't be in this area, because that's the county. They're not going to share they're not going to share the area with you. You'd have to find a new spot, which I don't know where that will be. That'll be up to you guys to figure out where you want. But that is a different process, which would require the city then going to the environmental people, to the whole list of them. There was a whole list of people that needed to seek approval, which is an expensive process. So with no assurance based on the prior rejections of the project that it would be even accepted even if we went with our own permit. So I just want to caution everyone. I mean, I think it's a great idea, because I love reefs, but it's not as simple as just saying we're going to go ahead and apply and we're going to have the city join us. Yes,
If I may, two separate things going on here, though.
Oh, I haven't gotten to the.
Lanita is out planting currently. This is what she does. It's not something new. It's what she does. That's separate from his application
I'm
to get
the
his
outlet.
structure permitted. And what happens, it's just like our permitting in our building department. You submit it, it gets thrown back. You submit it, it gets thrown back. They said the last one was open at the bottom and they were worried sea turtles would go in it.
Respectfully, let me finish. But
But it would,
I will say that it's not as simple as you just described. That said, the growing of the coral is a very different thing for me, and what
That's
you've been doing in
right.
that regard, I think, is excellent. And hoping that you can affix it to some of our live coral would be great. I mean,
Exactly.
I don't know those rules. I'm just trying to address the issue of the artificial reef.
So I thank you, and I think you're both right, actually. And just to say, they are two separate issues. The outplanting is something that is being discussed. Sounds like it's really positive for everyone, and I would recommend as a starting point for Delray Beach. I'm a resident. I live here, work here. My business is here. Our foundation is here. That's supporting this work. So just to say, by the way, Jason Bregman, 227 Lake Terrace, Delray Beach, Singer Studio. The funding for that was being discussed potentially tonight. It's great stuff. We've been working with Lanita for 5 years. Our studio is just down the street. They're doing really important work. I think that's where the focus should be.
right.
Regarding the artificial reef, I think Jim wanted to share that with you because we're doing something in Delray Beach that's really pushing boundaries about what artificial reefs could be and how they can function. it doesn't mean it has to be installed in Delray Beach. As a matter of fact, our funders, which are all foundations right now, and the National Endowment for the Arts, because technically we're an art and design studio here in Delray Beach, our funding right now, we have $80,000 to $90,000 to build this reef structure. Personally, because I live here and I love our home, I wanted to see it in the Delray Beach dredge hole, which is a county permit.
Right.
You have the communications.
And the dredge hole's a perfect place for it because it can't now be used for anything else.
And right now, they have some reef balls down there. It's a great place to see how it would do.
Right.
If we want to meet with the county and further explore that and further have those discussions, why not? But the thing
what
is,
I'm saying, Jason, I am happy to meet with you. I'm just saying my degree of optimism going in.
I'll be honest with you, Mayor. I think you're totally right. And frankly, we're meeting with other counties, and we have. I just would say we're more optimistic about our sites in Turks and Caicos and in San Andres. So we're probably going to be deploying in the Caribbean with a much larger system. I would love to see that investment here in Delray Beach. Like I say, I have $80,000 or $90,000 to deploy it now. I wish I could just give that money to Lanita for outplanting, but we've raised that money specifically for this reef system. So we developed a concrete structure that's twice as strong as the concrete holding up this building, that's 70% recycled content and 40% less carbon intensive. Nobody else in the United States is doing that. It's being done here in Delray. So that's
Again, I'm not the engineer.
Yeah,
but I think the outplantings there's a lot of a lot of merit to the outplantings, and particularly if, as described, the outplanting is going to be put within really off the Delray shore,
Yes.
as opposed to elsewhere.
Yes.
So that has real appeal.
absolutely, and that's where really
fisherman,
Delray
it
Beach
has real appeal.
should start. Just as a model, though,
Seriously, it helps.
just to say Hollywood CRA permitted completely and has already installed reefs out there now as a part of a tourism effort, and they're near shore. They're in like 8 feet of water, 10 feet of water.
Yeah.
So they're doing that right now, and that's a CRA-driven project. And I can just call them up and say, "Let us donate this to you guys." But just the thinking is that we'd greatly prefer to see it in Delray Beach. And in the future, if Delray Beach is interested in it, it would be ultimately for tourism. But I do think in the long term, right now, what do we have? $23 million for beach renourishment. 10% of that being used to try to create a regenerative coastal barrier like the one that we've developed that's deployed in Riviera Beach. Creating a system like this that would a healthy coral reef reduces around 97% of wave energy, 95 to 97% of wave energy. So instead of constantly repaying to renourish our beaches over and over and over again for millions and millions of dollars every time a storm comes by, not even a direct hit, just a storm. You've seen our beaches after a storm comes by. It's not even, it can hit the Bahamas and our beaches are decimated. If we had a system that could help prevent that money, instead of $23 million for renourishing beaches, 10% of that could prove that actually we can protect our beaches and also grow
Over
our
time.
beaches.
Over
So
time.
it's a long-term thing, and we're innovating right here in our city. So I just wanted to keep that on the table, just so you were aware.
Well, we're going to bring up in comments about
Yeah.
putting you on the agenda to talk about getting the grant for the outplantings.
And that's a
which-
great place to start. I can't be more
because,
supportive
I mean,
of
as
that. But I
say,
just wanted to let
I'm
you know
less
what was happening.
I'm truly less optimistic on the other part, but I think the outplantings is a great
I
idea.
totally
Let me
agree.
just
We're going to do a
add-
great job in Turks and Caicos.
I want to add while these gentlemen are still here, Mayor, and I agree. I think the outplanting is a great success in and of itself. And I don't want to conflate the two issues. I know they're two separate things. And I respect your pragmatism regarding, trying to do the artificial reef here. But it's such a great opportunity to do something innovative here in Delray. And I don't feel like we've really had a chance, this commission, to pitch the county on it. And I think it would behoove us to at least try. Right, and not in an oppositional way, in a collaborative way, et
As
cetera.
I said, I don't object. I just think I don't go in there with the sense of
Of course,
enthusiasm.
we'll go in and be
I'm
realistic.
speaking to
Yeah,
their
but
departments.
we got to try. We have to try. It's too cool of an opportunity, I think, to not give it a shot.
We appreciate it.
Thank
We'd love
you.
to see it here.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Can Lanita speak one?
Yeah, can I just speak 1 second?
certainly. I'm sorry.
Thank you so much, Mayor. I appreciate it. I just want to make sure to make something clear. First of all, we're the only organization that does this in Palm Beach County. And we're the only organization that has put coral back in the water in Palm Beach County. So a lot of times when people talk about outplanting, they think of the Keys. We're actively restoring the reefs for Palm Beach County. So yes, we've already worked with Palm Beach Environmental Resource Management. The County that have identified 2 potential sites in Delray Beach. They're very interested in seeing the south end of the county see beach rebuilding, and see reef rebuilding. It's something that we're very interested in, but to back the Vice Mayor, what's holding us off from doing that is funding. And so we just don't have the funding to do that. So we would like to take that on and to continue our goal is to continue to rebuild the reefs for all of the county. So I just thought it was worth saying that when we talk about outplanting, we get so wrapped up in the artificial reef, and it's such an exciting thing. Like Jason said, we've been working with him for 5 years on that project, but we're the only ones doing this here, and we want to continue to rebuild the reefs right here in our own county.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Okay.
May I ask a question, Mayor, Chair?
Certainly.
How do we
Mayor,
put
Chair.
this, can we put this on the agenda tonight, like you put your
Well,
item
when
on?
we get into comments, we'll get a consensus to put it on agenda.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, we'll put it on, we'll do
Okay.
the comments, you'll put it on the agenda.
Okay, great, thank you.
'Cause we
Thank
don't
you
want-
both.
Because when we put on the agenda, we'll have a full presentation where
Yeah.
they're talking about putting, I want to make sure at least it's in Delray.
Yeah, it's, no, Delray, it's
I know,
Delray guaranteed.
I know. Anyway.
That's for you.
Comments and inquiries on agenda and non-agenda items from the public. This is the meeting is now open to public comment from anyone wishing to speak on any topic or agenda item other than a quasi-judicial item or a public hearing item. Public will have an opportunity to speak on quasi-judicial and public hearing items later in the meeting as those agenda items are called for public comment. Please sign in and state your name and address for the record. You will each have 3 minutes. By the way, signing in is important because I tried to contact somebody who was up last week on something. I wanted to follow up, see I could help them, and they didn't sign in. So it's been, so the signing in with your email is actually very important. It's not just for show.
Mayor, I'm sorry. Item 7C, which is the waiver for the workforce housing unit,
Yeah.
that is quasi-judicial. It's not marked on the agenda, so I didn't know if
Well,
somebody was
when I
going to
get
speak
there,
to
then I'll
that.
read the quasi-judicial.
I didn't know if somebody was going to come speak to
Oh,
that. I
okay,
wanted to
all right.
know.
If anybody is rising to speak on 7C, which is a waiver on a property located at 316 Southwest 4th, that will be a quasi-judicial hearing, so if you could hold your remarks until we get to that portion of the agenda. Public comment, there you go. Great job, Heather.
Good evening. Can I ask you to pass these, please? Good evening, everyone. I'm Mariska Gatto. I'm the Cultural Arts Director for the DDA, and I oversee the Cornell Art Museum and art projects for the DDA. I just wanted to tell everyone we just launched our Icons of Art last week. It was a tremendous success. We had a preview night, and then also our main opening. We saw over 500 people with both nights. So we are definitely bringing in great crowds. We had many people from Miami coming, from North County, from many areas. I did bring our little flyer that we have with all of our upcoming shows. We do have, in Icons of Art, we have over 40 original mosaics from Italy. It's from a school in Italy that specializes in mosaic art and teaching the art. So we partnered with a company called Naonis, and they are a nonprofit that is trying to bring attention to these artists as they graduate from schools to keep them creating art and not just building swimming pool mosaics. So it's a wonderful endeavor, and we're very honored to partner with them. They sought us out, and they've been talking to me for about a year, trying to be part of our museum. So that's really exciting for us as a city to bring in something of this caliber, and I'm really honored to do that for the city. It's been a wonderful thing, always free admission, people coming through, kids, everybody. We've got some very notable people in this exhibition, so definitely come see it. I appreciate that you were there the other night, and it was wonderful to have you speak.
Well, both
and be
Commissioner
part of
Market
it.
and I Italian mosaics, they're known for their, this really was a fabulous show.
It was
and
terrific.
I'm very surprised, as I said at the thing, it came to Little Delray Beach, but if you haven't seen it, you really need to see it.
Definitely, and we have a all-women's exhibition coming up in March, and that's for International Women's Month, so we want to focus on women artists for that. We have another spotlight gallery, an artist who paints reflectivity in the water. So for having being a beach city, definitely it's a wonderful thing for us. And then coming up in the summer, we have a pop art exhibition that we're planning, and also planning a concert outside with some pop icons that'll be part of that whole endeavor. And then in the fall, we're doing an amazing exhibition with an artist, Dorothy Gillespie, who has passed, but her family is creating this beautiful collection, and we're proud to show it in the museum coming in the fall. So we have quite a lot planned. We want you to be with us and join us, and we're excited. We have a lot of fun things going on. So
Thank you very much.
thank you for your support. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Albert Richwagon, 298 Northeast 6th Avenue, Delray Beach, lifelong native of Delray. I also own the water sports rental stand on the beach, and 90% of the clients that come to the water sports rental stand want to go snorkeling. Currently, the shipwreck is entirely buried by sand. There is absolutely nothing to see. I was really excited to see the ship that was going to come into one of the bar areas that is now no longer and moving forward. Not sure if it's entirely dead, but it's not moving forward anymore. I would also say that when we do dredge our beach, that we take the sand from a bar area. And I believe that I've been told that we only have 1 or 2 dredgings left, and then there's no more space to borrow. There's no more sand to borrow. And the sand that we pump on the beach just washes back into the bar areas. So it's an endless process. So by creating a close to shore reef would retain the sand, and it would also give us more diving space. So please support the Reef program in any way you can. Thank you.
Thank you.
Montre Bennett, 323 Northwest 2nd Avenue in this city, 33444. I just want to say my son's name, Malachi. Today makes 12 years since his accidental death on Northwest 7th Avenue, and I reiterate his name, Malachi. I love you, I miss you. And next, I just want to say, that was very rude. I don't know what y'all doing, but we always talk about stability, and I've been hearing too much about how there's no morale in the police department. And when I said a year ago or 2 ago how we should have hired Daryl as the chief for stability, he's young, he's a resident here, born. That's stability to me. It ain't about color. It's about lifting up your team. It's about giving your team the words, the encouraging words that they need to thrive on their jobs. And I'm still with that. Daryl deserves to be this chief for years to come. It's not enough time for us to keep giving people 1 and 2 and 3 year contracts if we want stability. I've been out of meetings because I've been in other meetings. I'm on a meeting now. And with the fluoride, stop killing us slowly so y'all can get our property. Stop that. That's all it is. It's killing us slowly, especially in the set. That's the game plan. Kill us slowly where we don't recognize what's going on. Same thing with the government and all the food that we eating. Kill us slowly. We need to make policies where we can really grow our own food in our yards. We need to have policies where we can get some old beef and cattle on our land. We need policies where we can just do our own food and stop getting all this fake food in the grocery stores. What else I want to say? We need real stuff. And I see they talking about building quarries. We should have never killed them in the first place. And why are they dead? Because we got all these boats. We got all this gas getting poured out into the ocean. We got all these chemicals flowing through the sky from all these planes. And what are we doing about that? We're not doing nothing about it because we letting it take place. And we got to take it up with the United States government. So if we got to fight, we got to fight up top, not just down here. I'm complete.
I'm going to take exception to the remark that we're trying to slowly kill anyone just because of fluoride. I voted one way on it, but that's certainly not. That's totally inaccurate and not appropriate statement.
Hello, my name is Sheldine, 561 Northwest 48th Avenue. I am part of the Rainberry Woods HOA. I've been trying to talk to the code enforcers to help us with the codes that are going on in our neighborhood. They haven't done much for us. I get it that we haven't done anything on our part, but we are trying ourselves as HOA to do our part. So I'm asking the city to help us out for their code so that they could enforce it in our neighborhood. I also want to thank you guys for the sidewalks that you guys are fixing, but I also noticed that our roads are not being done. So if you can also implement our roads paving for the in your budget, that would be very nice. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Did you sign in, by the way?
Yes, I did.
So I'll look for your name.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. My name is John Kazanjian. I'm the president of Florida PBA, Police Benevolent Association, and the Palm Beach County Police Benevolent Association. The state, we represent 30,000 members, and here in Palm Beach County, we represent over 5,000 members. I'm here for asking for some help. We haven't had a contract in 5 months. We've been at negotiating tables for 8 months, and we're not getting anywhere. So I'm coming to the commission for help, and I'm not blaming the manager or anything. It just seems when we go into negotiations and we give them proposals, it takes 4 to 6 weeks to get an answer back. And I don't know if it's the administration's fault, or I just can't realize that, because that's not how all these other agencies work with the PBA. Usually there's somebody sitting at the table that can make a decision. And right now there is nobody sitting at that table that can make a decision. So if we come back with a proposal, whether it's a cost of living or whatever, some other type of benefits, health care, pension, whatever, somebody can answer those questions. But we're not getting that. So I'm asking for some help. And I'm not saying that we're in a crisis yet, but I'm going to tell you, the city of Delray is that close to being in a crisis. You've lost 8 officers since we've been negotiating the contract. We just lost one today, went to Martin County. It's just sad because Delray is the second lowest. We represent 29 municipalities, 2 sheriff's departments, Martin County and Palm Beach. Delray is the second lowest in pay and benefits. And that's uncalled for. It's never been like that. We've always been, in the top 8 or 5. And right now we're not getting the help that we need. Pension issues. We need help with the pension. Boynton Beach cut the pensions kind of similar to what Delray did. Boynton realized, hey, we're not keeping police officers, so we gotta change things. They restored the pension. We're just asking at the table that if we can get the pension system back to when it was gutted. And violent crime is up. You need to realize this. In 2024, we had 39 shootings, 2 homicides. Right now, in January, since February 18th, we've had 12 shootings and 2 homicides. People need to realize this is no joke. The men and women here, the morale, the men in the orange recently said the morale's low. Oh, it's low. It's really low, and it's getting lower. So I'm just asking for some help. We want to keep these men and women here, and listen, they love the department, but they're going to go where the pay and the benefits are better, and you're going to lose them if you don't pay the men and women. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioner. I am a resident of Delray Beach for 19 years. I came to Delray Beach 19 years ago and bought a very modest, small, little, lovely home. And in a neighborhood that was an old-fashioned neighborhood where all the families knew each other.
Ma'am, you have to introduce yourself formally and your address.
I'm sorry, my name
Name
is...
and address for the record.
Okay, my name is Faye Weisberg. I live at 870 Bond Way, Delray Beach, Florida. And as I said, I've been there for 19 years. I had a strong love for Delray when I first came here on vacation, and I felt that it was a wonderful place to make it home. In the last 19 years, I've been living in the middle of construction. Giant building construction, knocking down homes, building up 2 on one lot. Right now I have 3, one in front, one on the side, and 2 in the back, and I'm in the middle. I worked very hard this last 19 years to make a nice home. I did 2 renovations myself, working along with the town and the city and doing everything by permit, up to snuff. I did everything perfectly. And now what's happening in the neighborhood is, and according, right next to me, right behind me, is a building that looks like a hotel. And it's a box, it's giant, and it's 15 windows looking out in my backyard, and I have 0 privacy. They did follow all the building permits. The architect was concerned about a nice plan, making use of every inch of the property and building as big as they could build to get as much money as they could get. I understand that there's a great tax benefit to these big homes that are coming. I understand that the property that was there before was terrible. It was in bad, condition. No one lived there, no one took care of it. That was my neighbor. There were 2 elderly people that lived there. I helped them. I took out their trash, whatever I could do to help them, but that was a very bad property next door to me. So yes, is it going to be better? Yes, it's going to be better. But I think what the building department and the architects and everybody that gets together to come up with these ideas for these big boxes is, how does that affect the neighboring property? How does that affect the person that's been there 19 years and somebody that's worked hard and made a beautiful home? Nobody talks about that. What's going to happen to that person's home? And now I'm living with it. And these are pictures of, I can reach out and almost touch the building. And it's 15 windows across my whole back of my house. 15. This is a developer that's doing the whole neighborhood. He's building, right now I think he might have 15 or 20 houses in my neighborhood in my 5-block radius. And I understand he's trying to create better things for Delray and make it better, and it is looking nice, and there are some positives to everything. Nothing's all negative. But I think there needs to be some part of this building process and someone to look at. What's happening next door to the neighboring property? This person's been paying taxes and working hard and doing all the right things and cleaning her property and putting plants and investing in her property for 19 years. And now I have nothing to live for. Now my property's destroyed and I can't have privacy. And there's not even, I call the developer, STAM, development is the group, STAM. I call them numerous times to discuss it and say, what can we do? Can we come up with a...
You need to you had 3 minutes, so
yeah,
I'm letting you finish.
Here's the
If
photos.
you
So I
give
give you the
that
photos.
to the clerk.
Thank you.
It'll be part of the record.
And so that's what's really happening, and I really believe that I don't have any recourse at this point, other than maybe the developer could come up with some landscaping plan that would help me have a nicer property.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening, Pamela Williams, The Set, 245 Northwest 8th Avenue. Perfect timing for me to come behind the gentleman who spoke earlier, because my concern this evening is about the violence in my city. I'm going to move a little bit away from Paradise Heights because it's my city, our city. He was very correct in the stats for the shootings, and I'm going to bring it back to where it pertains mostly to me. I don't live on the barrier. I'm there often, but I don't live there. But in my neighborhood, it appears to be where the bulk of the crime is happening. Now I'm being told that it's because of understaffing. Understaffing. If I hear that one more time, I'm probably going to scream. If we have an opportunity to retain the element of quality law enforcement, we need to. I bitch and moan about law enforcement, but I know that they are the heart as well as fire with the city. So if I've got someone I've spent money on to train up, to get to know the neighborhood, I would like for that investment to stay with me. Us being known as a training ground for our area agencies is a joke. Everyone knows we've got high quality in Delray, so they wait for them to go through training with my money, to turn around and offer them more money, and they're gone. I'm losing money on my investment. I need to have full staffing, so when I call someone, I need them there. I don't want to hear, we're understaffed, we're down X amount of man. Violence needs to be a no thing of all in Delray. That's not practical. But the lower we get it, the better. And to have, like the gentleman stated earlier, to have 12 shootings and 2 homicides in the year already, I haven't even had any Easter candy. And we're already down 2 bodies. That's ridiculous. So if we have to do something, money, retention, morale, we have to, because I'm losing my money on area law enforcement because we haven't signed a contract, because we haven't come to an agreement. I don't know the detail of that, but I do know that I want a fully staffed police department. If that means the morale needs to be improved, let's do that. If that means we need to come to the table more so with the giving than the taking, let's do that. I don't seem to have that problem when I visit other cities for leisure. Please do something to where I've got a fully staffed police department. When I call to complain, I want to see more than one person coming to hear me bitch and moan. Do what you can to help us with our violence decrease. That's too many in just a couple of months in the new year. And homicides is never a good thing. Let's come to an agreement on something to where I'm not training them up and sending them away. Thank you.
Pamela.
Good evening. Laura Simon with the Downtown Development Authority.
Should we wait a minute, Mayor?
Yeah,
And let
you can wait a second, Ms. Simon.
Sure.
To be
So-
polite.
Are they all going to speak too? Oh. Just let me know when.
You may continue.
Okay. I won't take full time. I just wanted to echo Maruska's, Gatto's, Laura Simon, Downtown Development Authority, just her gratitude and appreciation for the support of the city and our initiatives at Old School Square, and give her props and just praise that she's killing it at the museum, really bringing in some high quality exhibitions, and we do. She's a master at that, and we're really proud of the work she does. The whole team is really working hard in collection with the city staff. The city staff, I know, we do a lot of events in this city, and it is a lot of extra work, and we really applaud and appreciate all our city partners to really help execute those events. A lot goes on behind the scenes that not many people know, and it does take a lot of teamwork to put all these events on, both at Old School Square and in the middle of a street. So we have 2 of those this week, this week and next week. We have a concert at Old School Square campus outside in the amphitheater on Thursday night. Gates open at 5. The museum also will be open with its exhibitions, so please come out and see that. As well as next week, Wednesday, we do have Art and Jazz on the Avenue, on West Atlantic Avenue in the Set, that starts at 6 p.m. And it is going to be a fun night, 3-4 blocks of entertainment, art vendors. We're partnering with Blackmer's Market and the Peach Umbrella Network. So, and just supporting and also highlighting some of our elders in the Set community that evening as well. So, again, thank you to the city, and also thank you to the city for the new sod we have at Old School Square campus. It does look beautiful out there. So thank you, and congratulations on the Delray Open. Well done.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioner, and staff. Andrea Bruton, 703 Place Tavern, Delray Beach, Florida. As you all know, on a lighter note, actually, let me go back. I share the same sentiment with Ms. Williams as far as the police department is concerned and our investment. I would like to see the residuals from the investments, especially in the higher management positions that we're sending off to higher training. We're sending them to higher training, and then somebody else is benefiting from the training that we've paid for. So let's make sure our police department here in Delray is taken care of, and that's all I have to say about that. But on a lighter note, in 10 days, I've talked to you all before about the Let's Move initiative starting, Let's Move 2025. We're 10 days away. Our first event is our pep rally on March 3rd, Monday, March 3rd at Old School Square. And in preparing for the pep rally for the City of Champions, for our leaders, we want to present you with official t-shirts. Let's Move t-shirts for the initiative. We're looking forward to you all participating and being a part of Let's Move for this first time. So thank you. Can I come in as well and present you your t-shirts?
You may.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. I gotta move with it.
I took out my computer.
Thank you kindly.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So that we can get more checks.
Good afternoon. Deborah Davis Walker, 1312 Northwest 2nd Street, here in Delray Beach. I am here this afternoon to tell you that my church, St. Paul African Methodist Episcopal Church, which is located on Northwest 5th Avenue across from the Spady Museum, held our 68th annual organizational tea this past Sunday at Pompey Park. We had the opportunity to honor 10 different individuals, 3 of which received community service awards, which were Verna Harris at Pompey Park with the Delray Divas, what's that girl's, Kenya Madison with Healthier Delray, and Commissioner Angela Burns. But more importantly than telling you about the tea itself and the people that we honored is the fact that Gerard Smith and the team at Pompey Park worked tirelessly with us starting Saturday afternoon to set up the gymnasium for the tea, as well as Sunday morning prior to the tea. So I'm here this afternoon to give a shout out to the team at Pompey Park for the work that they did with us this weekend. We have received nothing but positive comments about the tea, and none of that could have happened without Gerard and his team. So thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, Deputy Vice Mayor, Commissioners, Jim Knight, 85 Southeast 4th Ave, Delray Beach. I don't know any of the details about the police at all, but I have heard the common theme that I think we were at one of the meetings here not too long ago, and someone was the second or third in charge went over the Gulfstream or something like that, if I recall correctly. It does sound like we are losing a number of police officers, and Delray Beach shouldn't be at the bottom. I mean, for sure. And again, I don't know any specifics or whatever else, but hopefully we can get through that. I'm here to talk about a couple other things. I know that development's always a big issue here in Delray Beach, and height and density, intensity, and so forth. And it used to always be, and Boca would say, do it our way or go to Delray, right? Delray became phenomenal, right? Our street is still better, pedestrian count-wise, anything else than in Boca, and even I'll go against Clematis Street and some of the other places and so forth. But there are a lot of new projects that are happening, and I just wanted to make sure that you all are well aware of them, because there's only so many dollars can get pulled around, and it's starting to get pulled in different directions. You've got a couple big projects happening in Boca Raton. If you go back in time to 2006 when we lost Office Depot, they went to Boca Raton on Military Trail. They're tearing down one of those buildings there and building 400 or so, 500 multifamily units there and some workforce housing. There's also the new city center, which they awarded to Terra Development out of Miami, which is redoing the whole downtown, which is great because they're keeping a lot of the downtown, the banyan trees by City Hall, things like that, so forth, just sprucing it up and so forth. And then if you look up to West Palm, you have Vanderbilt that's doing the new facility. I would go crazy if we could get a university to come here to Delray. We've talked about it for probably 30 plus years. But hopefully we can keep our eye on the ball, take care of the businesses that are here first, right? So all of our restaurants, things like that, so forth, that are having some issues. And then hopefully continue to grow, because as Lee Iacocca said many years ago, lead, follow, or get out of the way. And I hope we're going to continue to lead here in Delray Beach. Have some handouts for everybody. I appreciate your time very much. And on the end of the Green Implementation Task Force, I was kind of surprised they didn't mention any workforce housing. So if we had people living from the city that work in the city and are able to walk to, so forth, I think it would be helpful. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Knight.
Good evening, Commissioners, Mayor. Commissioner Burns, I just want to applaud you for your public comment last time, because I have a 3-year-old. She be watching.
Sir, your name and address, please.
Erwin Nessie, 561 Northwest 48th Avenue. I have a 3-year-old that be watching you guys talk, and sometimes she just asks me, why do people talk like that? So I do want to applaud you for your comment that you made in regards to how we address people. Back to what I came here for. I want to piggyback off my sister. She mentioned Rainbow Woods. Rainbow Woods, we've been doing our own little thing. I've been on the board, and my sister came on and took over. So a lot of things like we see, like we've been neglected from the city. Like sometimes like we feel like we fighting a battle by ourselves, like where nobody in the city just pay attention to what we doing, or like we out west and they don't care. A lot of the residents are asking if you guys could look into how we could put more lights into the neighborhood, because the neighborhood does get dark at night. I know sometimes they get it's because of the residents not turning on their floodlight, but if we could add more light into the neighborhood, that would be very helpful to the community itself. I do want to thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. I come before you, we're still celebrating 28 days of Black History.
Your name and address.
Oh, I'm sorry, Cynthia Ridley, 210 Northwest 2nd Avenue, Delray Beach, Florida. Just to give you a little update of what we're doing that's coming up this week for Black History Week. On Saturday, it's going to have a gala that's done by the NAACP, and we're going to be honoring some people from our community. And the tickets are $125 if you decide to go at the last minute and show up and be dressed from 6 to 4. From 4 to, what is it? 6 to 10. So please come out, and because we're going to be honoring some great people from my community, and one is sitting up there with you guys, Commissioner Angela Burns. And we have a couple more, Chuck Ridley as well.
This is really the year of Angela Burns.
And
she's been nominated.
And Chuck,
it's all over the place.
So we hats off to them. Chuck Ridley, former Commissioner David Randolph, and Red Odom, who has been doing baseball forever in our community. So if you can't support, please send a donation. Because Lucy forgot to remind you guys, but I'm here to like her backup secretary. Have a great day.
Thank you, Mrs. Ridley.
Jim Chard, 401 Southeast 4th Avenue, Delray Beach. I wanted to thank the city manager for forwarding to all of you the proposal from the Historic Planning Board and Historic Planning staff of considering the native environment historically available for preserving as well. That we always protect and preserve, or usually always, the man-built, woman-built environment, but not the native environment. And the reason I'm up here is that this was first submitted to the City Commission in November of 22. And by my count, that was quite a few years ago. And then it was submitted to this commission on December of 24. And I realize this may not be the most pressing issue that you all have before you, but I do think it's important, and hopefully you find the time to take a look at that, and maybe that can be on a workshop someday. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chard. Are there any other members of the public wishing to speak? I don't know. Are they getting up to speak? Seeing none? Yes? Seeing none, public comment is closed. We now need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great. Okay, we're now going to the regular agenda, 7AA, which is the pulling of the 6B? 6B.
Resolution 3625.
Okay. Would you like to read the resolution? Well, I mean, we don't need to. I mean, I think it's pretty straightforward, but
I can do it. Resolution number 36-25, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Delray Beach, Florida, urging the Florida State Legislature to enact legislation to provide a public records exemption for municipal clerks and employees who perform municipal elections work or have any part in code enforcement functions of a city, and providing for an effective date.
thank you very much. Ms. Casal.
Yes, I just pulled this because there were comments being made on social media sites with respect to this, and there was some confusion. This simply protects our clerk's private information.
Absolutely.
It doesn't have anything to do with public records requests or any other information that would always be in the sunshine. It's just a personal protection for her, and I support it, but I wanted residents to know what it's about.
Great. Are there any other comments from the commission?
No, good clarification, though.
I'm sorry?
I
Yes.
said good clarification.
Yes, I think it's very important these days to make the people that handle the elections have some privacy.
Totally agree.
Need a motion to approve?
Motion to approve resolution number 36-25.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It is adopted. See, I'm getting there. See, it's adopted. Here we go. 7A, approval of the SEIU collective bargaining agreement between the City of Delray Beach and the Service Employees International Union. Do we need a presentation? Oh, there we are.
Dwayne DeAndre, Human Resources Director. Proud to be in front of you guys. As you know, we've had several executive sessions concerning this topic. 3-year successor agreement with the SEIU leadership. It's important that when you build relationships, we can see that. They're here present in the audience tonight, along with some of their members. So it's a comprehensive agreement. We've added some incentives and some work rules, flexibility for the operational issues considered, really around our water plant people, incentive pays, things of that nature. And I'm just here looking for your approval. It was ratified by their members overwhelmingly.
Okay, are there any questions from the commission? Then, are there any comments? Then I need a motion to approve.
Motion to approve SEIU collective bargaining agreement between the City of Delray Beach and...
Mr. Ridley wants to comment, I'm sorry.
I would assume that we would have been, or we would have done it during public comment.
Well, no, you were actually in a public comment. This is not quasi-judicial, or,
Right.
but if you would like to get up, Mr. Ridley, and give a very
You can't
brief...
do, you
Huh?
can't, we
Oh, no, I
can't keep
can't do that.
changing
I
the
can't do
rules.
that.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Mr. Ridley.
We have to apply our rules or we'll be...
Right.
We'll send it to you in writing.
Very good.
We let him
Thank
speak after we vote? I mean,
Huh?
we let him speak after
No,
we vote?
that's-
Does
We
that-
have to follow policies
Yeah, we're
in terms of the rules or we expose ourselves to liability.
I
I
missed the
think you'll
meeting,
receive
sorry.
something that's favorable from Mr. Ridley.
That's fine.
Yeah, he's just
I
gonna
need it,
thank us.
we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
There
It's-
was not a second, I don't think.
Huh?
I mean, we learned today we don't need a second, but I didn't.
Second.
There wasn't.
We got a
Thank you.
second? Angela
Second.
seconded it. I thought she seconded.
I thought I did too, but maybe not.
We got interrupted. That's okay.
No.
All good?
It's all good.
All right, thank you very much.
Did we
That
vote?
passes 5-0.
Okay.
Okay. 7B. We have a presentation, right?
Yes, Mayor, 7B and 7C are the quasi judicial proceedings. I don't know if you want to
Okay,
read
let
the
me-
rules.
7A and 7B are quasi-judicial. Let me read the quasi-judicial rules.
B and C, Mayor.
I'm sorry?
7B and 7C.
7B and 7C, right, the one now and the one next. This hearing shall be conducted in accordance with the quasi-judicial rules. The applicant and the city shall be allowed 15 minutes each to present their case. The public shall be allowed to speak for 3 minutes each, or a maximum of 6 minutes, if the person represents an organization or a group of people who are present but agree not to speak. The city commission and staff and the applicant may be allowed to cross-examine a witness. The city or the applicant will be allowed to offer rebuttal testimony. The decision to approve or deny an application or appeal may not be made legally upon personal views as to whether or not a project is a good project or not, nor may a decision be based on the numbers of citizens who support or oppose a particular project. The law requires that all decisions must be made on the basis of whether or not a project meets the requirements of law, the comprehensive plan, and the land development regulations. If there's anybody that's going to be speaking on this matter, if you could please rise and be sworn by the clerk.
By the authority vested in me as a notary of the state of Florida, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Great. There's just any ex parte conversations on on this matter?
I don't believe I had any, only what would be on the server, I believe.
Okay.
What's on the server, and I spoke to Mr. Weiner.
I spoke with Mr. Weiner as well, and what's on the server?
I spoke with Mr. Weiner.
Okay. So, all right, presentation of the case. If staff could enter the file into the record.
Mayor, do you want me to read it?
Good evening, Anthea Janiotis.
You want to read the resolution? Do you read well, yes, go ahead.
It's up to you.
I mean, you got used to it. I know it's your moment to shine. It's okay.
I'm good. Resolution number 17-25, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Delray Beach, Florida, approving a conditional use to allow recreational establishment at 14406 South Military Trail, as more particularly described herein, pursuant to the land development regulations of the Code of Ordinances and the comprehensive plan of the City of Delray Beach, providing an effective date and for other purposes.
Thank you very much. If staff could please enter the file into the record.
Good evening, Anthea Janiotis, Development Services Director, and I'd like to enter file 2024-242 into the file, and Mr. Weiner is here for an overview of the request.
Great.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. Michael Weiner for the record, 6111 Broken Sound Parkway, Northwest Boca Raton, Florida is my business address. I'm here on behalf of Candy Wonderland Delray LLC, who is under a lease for 2,423 square feet in the shopping center located at 14400 South Military Trail, Delray Beach, Florida. Glad I put that into the record. Everyone's familiar with the shopping center. They're in a center that is 24,000 square feet in total. It is between Girls U Pick and the Four Corners Public Shopping Center to the south, Boys Market and the United States Post Office to the north. So we've all been there one time or another. We all know that it is a high traffic area. That's true. So Military Trail in Atlantic is a heavy intersection. We're above that. And yes, it is one of the more traveled areas, but that's been good for the region. We all know the investment that has been made in that shopping plaza. It proves to be a good location to start a small business, serving local families with an indoor playground inside a 2,400 square foot bay. That's 1/10 of the shopping center, so you get an idea. This is just a very small part of it. And infinitely small in comparison to the hundreds of thousands of square feet that are at the Four Corners, those four shopping centers, and the other shopping centers in the immediate area. And we're talking about something smaller than a good-sized house. And we're talking about only being on the inside. This is one of the last in-store points of purchase locations in Atlanta, in Delray and Atlantic Avenue. And it survived the Amazon onslaught. The bulk of my client's business is allowing young children to use an alternate play area, especially in the heat of May through September, and to be supervised in a safe environment by their parents. Their parents must stay. Light snacks and drinks can also be purchased. This shopping center is zoned general commercial, and while it's near the Four Corners area, it is not in the Four Corners overlay. You know, you have a whole set of ordinances for that. Permitted commercial uses. This is really interesting. Well, at least for me, and I think it is for you. So, in general commercial, you have arts and crafts, you have baked goods, you have book sales, you have pharmacies, you have ice creams, you have pet and pet supplies, you have toys and bicycles. Then you also have, these are all permitted. Nobody has to come before a commission. Then you also have wine and liquor sales, tobacconists, photographic studios, medical offices, auctions, dry cleaners, and laundromats, and it goes on. You've got vocational schools for arts and crafts, teaching, dancing, gymnastics, and karate. You also have cocktail lounges, exercise facilities such as gyms, indoor shooting ranges, newsstands, parking lots, and parking garages. Also on this list, you can get an idea when this list was done when you hear some of these things. You have astrologists, clairvoyants, fortune tellers, psychic readers, and spiritualists. Those are all permitted. You'd never have to come here, okay? They only need a business tax receipt. My client, not being a land planner and a zoning attorney, genuinely believed that his use fit within the general commercial uses. However, further scrutiny of the code led planning and zoning staff to conclude that a children's indoor play area should be considered a recreational establishment, which is classified in our code as a use such as a bowling alley, a gymnasium, a health spa, miniature golf course, or a skating rink. This is a conditional use. That's why you have to spend some time with me tonight. And we did spend some time with planning and zoning, which also agreed with us 5-1 that it was an appropriate conditional use. There's no clear distinction between, on one hand, a school for karate or gymnastics and a gymnasium, which is a conditional use. Please understand there is no complaints about the city treatment. We completely understand the city's right to interpret its code. I just have to point out to you why it is that this is difficult for a layperson to understand why they have to go through 2 public meetings under the code. Not a complaint. So conditional uses are governed by requirements set forth in the LDRs, and there's really 3 sets of requirements. First, the use will not have a significantly detrimental effect upon the stability of the neighborhood in which it is located. Second, use will not hinder development or redevelopment of nearby properties. Third, the criterion that is third is a measurement against the land use map, concurrency requirements, and consistency with our LDRs. Looking at the present approved shopping center, so let me just go on. Let's switch, hold on. I may be one too far. There it is. All right. Thank you. Let me bring some things to your attention and to the features of the shopping center. First, the shopping center requires 100 parking spaces under the present code. This is not a non-conforming use, it's under the present code. There's 118, so we're 18% over what is presently required. In the center, there's already medical offices and restaurants. Both of them have significantly higher traffic generation classification than a recreational establishment. They were permitted uses. They didn't have to come before you. And this does lead us to the issue of traffic. If Military and Atlantic Avenue are well used, does it mean that you can't approve a conditional use? It doesn't have anything to do with the generalized traffic situation. Your requirements for conditional use, which your staff will go over with us, doesn't have to do with those general difficulties at Atlantic and Military. The criterion are, once again, it will not have a significantly detrimental effect upon the stability of the neighborhood. It will not hinder development or redevelopment. And then, of course, those things that are measurable under consistency and concurrency. So, to the point, the use as a recreational establishment will not have a significantly detrimental effect on the stability of a neighborhood that contains multiple grocery stores, fast food out parcels, drive-throughs, liquor stores. So in 2,400 square feet, we will not have a significantly detrimental effect on the stability of the neighborhood. Allowing one bay to be used as a recreational purpose, don't forget, we're not expanding inside the shopping center, we're not doing anything, we're altering the common areas. It can't possibly have a significantly detrimental effect. This is being done in an area that, as I've said, allows for standalone tobacco sales, standalone liquor sales, parking garages, cocktail lounges. Once again, the general traffic situation is not a criterion. If you want to take a look at what the professionals say about this, your staff has covered this in the report. Actually, part of the record is both a traffic professional engineer's report as well as a letter from the county on this exact issue. And it shows, well, the professional traffic engineer said about 26 cars per day, 3 at AM peak hours and 2 at PM peak hours, 2 per hour at peak hours. Palm Beach County was even nicer. It was 21 traffic trips additional a day. So it just can't have a significant impact. In fact, it meets traffic concurrency requirements. The staff will talk about that. So while it's not a factor under the code, I did want to explain it to you so that we weren't getting off the subject and we were sticking to what the LDRs are. So there's a last criteria, and I'll leave that because I think one of the things that you often see is we just duplicate our own presentations. I know you've had some long pre-presentations to the meeting. I want to be efficient with your time. The last one has to do with the concurrency requirements and the consistency and concurrency. You'll see in the staff report, every single box is checked. All the LDR required findings are there. We're consistent with the land use map because we're GC. Concurrency, traffic, solid waste, water, drainage, schools, everything is mentioned in the staff report. The boxes are checked. Consistency with the comprehensive plan, there are 4 positive policies listed. So I'm not going to repeat them more than I already have. I will let staff cover them. So if you look at the standards for conditional use, our particular situation is allowed under that. We meet the full criteria of it. We aren't detrimental. We're too small to be detrimental. We are, in fact, will not hinder redevelopment or development of the properties. Again, too small for that. And having met those benchmarks, the issue of a small amount of addition of traffic, especially since we know full well that permitted uses could go in there at much larger traffic generation numbers than what you're allowing, can't deter you, shouldn't deter you from voting in favor of this. As I've said, planning and zoning found 5-1 in favor of it. Some of the things that I've covered here and covered in particular detail, because there was one member of the planning and zoning board who had difficulties with anything that might be in the Four Corners area, even though we're just immediately outside of it. I'm hoping you see that this is substantial competent evidence to meet what is required under the code, and I will let staff give its presentation since the graphics are always much better than I can produce. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Just hopefully switch over in a minute. I don't actually have the Anthea Geniotis, Development Services Director. I don't have a ton to add to this. I think you've gotten a pretty good overview of it. I think part of what Mr. Weiner was referring to is the business opened with the zoning certificate of use for retail. And so this is a little bit of an after the fact sort of approval because an indoor playground is not retail. And this is why you should be very thorough on your zoning certificate of use applications when you describe what it is you intend to do, because there are nuances in the code. Okay, so the property is Zone GC. It has a general commercial land use as well. That's the version. This is the, I do have some graphics that he didn't have. Okay, this is the shopping center that's located on South Military Trail. The indoor playground is proposed to be open 9 to 7, Monday through Thursday, 9 to 9, Friday through Sunday. While it's for no more than 50 occupants, ultimately the final occupancy will be determined by the fire department once the life safety plan and the final inspection is done. But that's, you know, it's a minor, it would be a minor fluctuation either direction. This is the type of playground that's in there. Just these are from the Google business listing. So not selling stuff in most of the square footage. But this type of use is allowed. It's just to double check that it's not going to have an impact on the adjoining businesses. It's going to be too loud or something like that. So that's the location in the corner of the plaza. Again, the life safety plan, which will ultimately determine the final occupancy. And the basic determination of conditional use is that, is it going to have a detrimental effect upon the neighborhood? In this case, you're really looking to the adjoining businesses or the businesses in the plaza and whether it's going to hinder development. It is surrounded by other commercial uses. There's a little piece of agriculture still left here, but it's not adjoining any residences or residential uses where it would have potentially any kind of impact from the sound of happy children playing. So, you'd be surprised what we get complaints about. Ultimately, parking is probably the big issue. I think Mr. Weiner presented pretty accurate, fully accurate tables. Shopping center parking is actually done differently, but we calculated it both just using the general shopping center plaza and by the individual use. And in both cases, there is more than enough parking for this use to be located within that plaza. I'm not going to expect you to read all this, but these types of applications require findings with the standards related to land use concurrency, consistency, and just generally being in compliance with the LDR. The main LDR in this case is the parking, whether it's okay. Concurrency, again, it goes to the issue of traffic. I'm sorry, I'm just going to look to the staff report on, I believe that the traffic was anticipated to create less than 21 peak hour trips. So a detailed study wasn't even required by the county. It was satisfied with the statement. So it's sort of a negligible amount. And I concur with Mr. Weiner's characterization that there are other uses that are allowed in GC that could have a more intense traffic impact. So the zoning is consistent with the land use. There are also multiple policies in the comprehensive plan related to just ensuring that when you approve this, you're considering that it would be a complementary mix of uses in the area, that it would not, that, you know, the intent is to be business friendly to a wide range of businesses and to promote job opportunities and a wide range of services for our residents. So those are the comprehensive plan policies that were called out. Again, there's not a specific regulation related to how many people can be in there. A lot of things have to do with the arrangement of the travel pass and the ways to the exits and things like that. So the final occupancy would be determined when the fire department does its final inspection. It was positively received by the Planning and Zoning Board, and they recommended approval by a vote of 5-1. And I'm here if you have any questions.
Thank you very much. Are there any members of the public wishing to speak on this application, on this matter? Seeing none, is there any cross-examination of staff or any rebuttal witnesses that you wish to present, staff? Michael?
No, I think we both agree.
Okay.
I hope we weren't too duplicative of each other.
No. All right, well then, now, seeing none, discussion by the commission, Mr. Long?
Yeah, this appears to meet all the required findings for conditional use, so I'll be in favor of approving it.
Commissioner Burns?
Same here. Meets all the requirements, and I'm ready to support.
Commissioner Marker?
It ticks all the boxes for me, so I'll be supportive of this.
Commissioner Casal?
I'm supporting this as well. Would you like me to, or would someone like to? You want me to make a motion?
Well, I will entertain a motion.
Sorry.
That's okay. I
Thank
will
you.
entertain a motion.
Motion to approve resolution number 17-25.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Marker?
Yes.
Deputy Vice Mayor Long?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Casal?
Yes.
Commissioner Burns?
Yes.
Mayor Carney?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Noting I
both
said,
goes
would you
together?
like me to make a motion versus I will take a motion. See, we're already doing better.
So 7C is,
Doing
I
it.
thought they went together.
Anyway,
These went together.
item number 7, I'm sorry?
These went together?
No.
No.
7C?
This is item 7C.
It's this
Would you please read the resolution into the record?
resolution number 20-25, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Delray Beach, Florida, approving a waiver request to sections 4.1.4B and 4.1.4D of the Land Development Regulations to allow construction of a non-workforce housing, single-family residential structure on the property located at 316 Southwest 4th Avenue, as more particularly described herein, providing for an effective date and further purposes.
Okay. We've already, if there's anyone who's going to speak, everyone's been sworn in, right? This is a quasi-judicial. Staff, would you please enter the file into the record?
Yes, Anthea Giniotis, Development Services Director, and I'd like to enter file 2025-072, and Mr. O'Gorman is here for an overview of the request.
Very good. You're
Mayor,
on.
I'm sorry, ex parte.
Oh, any ex parte communication on this?
None for me, unless that's whatever's on the
I
circuit.
had I had a lot to say about it, but no ex parte conversation. Sorry.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. Corey O'Gorman, Place Planning. I'm here representing the property owner, William Bonner. I will briefly review the waiver request for the affordability requirements
for the property located at 316 Southwest 4th Avenue, and I appreciate your time and consideration. The site is located on the west side of Southwest 4th Avenue between Southwest 3rd and Southwest 4th Street and is zoned R1A for single-family residential. Mr. Bonner purchased the property in 2018 from the city of Delray Beach, planning to build one single-family market-rate home, and that home has been designed and submitted for permits. Although there's only one tax parcel, the property is comprised of two platted lots of record, lots 4 and 24 of Block 32, the town of Delray, which was recorded in 1917. Per the plat, the lots are recorded with a width of 50 feet. Lot 4 is 100 feet deep, lot 24 is 90 feet deep, for a total of 190 feet of lot depth, 50 feet of lot width, and 9,500 square feet of lot area. The R1A zoning district requires a minimum of 60 feet of lot width for an interior lot, 100 feet of depth, and 7,500 square feet of lot area. So except for the lot width, this parcel exceeds the minimum code requirements. And as you know, for those lots of record which are less than 50 feet, but more than 40 feet in width and frontage, a single-family home may be constructed for workforce housing or a waiver granted by the City Commission to construct a market-rate home. Although the lots are platted at 50 feet of width, as you saw from the prior slide, both lots survey at 49.81 feet on both Southwest 4th Avenue and Oak Alley. This discrepancy is attributed to a lack of complete accuracy in the way in which platting and surveying was done in the past. So during the design process, it was discovered that the lot was short by 2.28 inches, and a waiver was necessary even though the lot had been platted at 50 feet. Interestingly, as you can see from the survey on the screen now, the overall depth of the parcel is slightly over 190 feet, 190.69 on the south side. Regarding the criteria for granting a waiver, the waiver is a request to allow construction of one market-rate home on lots 4 and 24. Homes in the same block and nearby blocks have been developed over a period of time, including those for market rate and workforce housing. The waiver is for affordability restriction only, is for lots of record that were platted at 50 feet, but due to minor surveying errors over time, it's short by 2.28 inches. And construction of a market rate home on this lot will have no adverse neighborhood impact. Impacts to public facilities and services will be no greater for a market rate versus a workforce home, and the payment of permit fees and impact fees that are required for all single-family homes will ensure that the public services and facilities are in place to accommodate the new development, and consequently the waiver will have no impact on public services. The proposed waiver will address only the ability to sell the new home at a market rate, and the design and construction of the new home will comply with all other applicable city and building codes. As such, a waiver will not create any unsafe circumstances. Homes on other lots of similar size have been constructed for market rate housing in the area, and if other waivers are granted, or rather if other waivers are requested under similar circumstances which meet the required findings, a waiver could be granted. So consequently, approving the waiver would not grant a special privilege, and this request complies with the required findings for granting a waiver. I appreciate your time. Thank you very much for your time and consideration. This concludes my presentation and respectfully request your approval. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Gianotis.
Good evening. So I think you've gotten a good overview from the applicant. This is actually the second time where sort of modern surveying techniques. The other one was in the north part of the city. Mr. Eliopoulos brought one through where it was just like the pin has moved or something over time. So if you are inclined to grant this waiver, then perhaps these types of things could be considered by DSMG up to a certain amount in the future so that we can...
You've been reading my notes.
Okay.
I know we had this call.
So, so we could, streamline these, especially for homeowners. This is a strange little block. It is sort of a block and a half with this street, Oak Alley, which was platted as an alley, but you can see that there's lots that actually face the alley, and then that goes to kind of the backs of these lots. And so it's a tricky block to begin with. The permits that are in are for one home on these lots. They're not trying to build one and then take the much smaller lot on and face that way. Not that they couldn't change it down the road, but it is written for a workforce housing waiver. So again, it's on hold because of this surveying sort of situation. This is a picture of the original plat. It's clearly labeled that it's supposed to be a 50-foot wide lot, and it's coming up just over 2 inches off. And so that's the size of the overall lot, because it was historically two platted lots that were kind of put together. Before the adoption of the ordinance in 2006, these were sort of considered remnant undevelopable lots. You would have to combine more than one of them to be able to move forward. And this idea that anything less than 50 feet, but at least 40 could be used for workforce housing was an incentive to that. This is a little different than that. If you saw in the plat, the lot to the next lot to the north is only like 39 feet wide, so it's really constrained. But this was always supposed to be a 50-foot wide lot. There's ample depth to the actual configuration of the land. And so being off by that small amount is not inconsistent with the rest of the block. They're all platted about this size in this area of the city. It wouldn't impact public facilities. The alley is going to actually function as an alley for this property and not as a street. And then the house is facing the street. So some of those concerns in past are not applicable here. Ultimately, we do need workforce housing. It is really important. I would also point out that this is the area that is under consideration for accessory dwelling units in the future, and there is alley access here in a very deep lot. So just to put that on the record, that could be something that you should be watching, and that would be a different method for achieving workforce housing in this area that may be coming. So that's all I have to offer him here. If you have any questions, and if you're again inclined to, this would be the second one that's been like this, that you could maybe there would be a shortcut around future surveying issues like this.
Thank you very much. Are there any members of the public wishing to speak on this? Please come to the podium, give your name, address, and you shall each have 3 minutes.
Good evening, City Commissioner, Mr. Mayor. Christina Morrison, 1000 Lowry Street in beautiful downtown Delray Beach. This lot is actually bigger than most lots in this neighborhood because it's too deep. It's just doesn't meet the width. This is not the fault of this buyer. It was surveyed wrong when it was sold to him. These are lots that were platted a long time ago for cottages, which is what this neighborhood used to be, was nice cottages. Over the years, the houses in Delray Beach, as you know, have gotten bigger and bigger and bigger. But this is a neighborhood that's platted for these little cottages. So please approve this. This will be a great addition to the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other members of the public wishing to speak? Public comment is closed. Any cross-examination, any additional between staff and the applicant?
No, sir.
Okay, hearing none, then it's now to the commission. Let me, I'm going to say this. When you have a 50-year-old plat, or a 70-year-old plat in this case is a 7-year-old plat, and the city signed the plat, saying it was 50 feet, I think, and the pins do move. I've been involved in these before, over this many years. I happen to be personally of the opinion that you should be dealing with this administratively, because it's clearly an error, not of the doing of the person who bought the land from the city of Delray Beach, by the way. And so, that's a policy decision, but which I can't make on my own. But these kinds of things you should, as you said, it's not the first time we've seen this. We've seen it. We had them up in Palm Trail. There was that 149 3/4 in Palm Trail. Same deal. So I just think that you need to, the word is not bother us, but there are certain things that you administratively should do when it's clear that this was not a fault of the buyer, and he's sitting on a platted lot that the city of Delray Beach said is 50 feet. So that's kind of my view on that. But I'm gonna Commissioner Long.
I mean, I agree 100% with what you just said, Mayor. I'd like to obviously I approve this. It sucks you guys had to literally come in here over 2 inches. That's crazy. I'd love to give staff the latitude, whatever that looks like, to approve these things administratively. So we're not wasting our time, your time, the applicant's time, etc.
Commissioner Burns.
Yeah, I'll be in support of this. The land in Delray is not created equal, and I think that this should be an administrative decision because we're going to see more. So I'll be in support.
Commissioner Casal.
Yes, I am as well. I thought at one point when I sat up here previously, we gave you the ability within a certain parameter. I can't remember. We were seeing these. Do you recall?
So we allowed DSMG to adjust waivers that were granted by a certain percentage, but this is sort of, it's a number. If it's more than 50 feet this, if it's less than 50 feet that.
Got it.
And we didn't add that to the list of things we could administratively acknowledge were a pin moving or something like that.
Okay.
So
well, I definitely would support that as well.
I mean, you want to be able to deem this as 50 because the city said it was 50 feet. I mean,
Right.
At some juncture.
Right.
Because we did this in Palm Trail, but they had those 3 of them on Palm Trail, I remember, and same.
It's the older part of the city, so
The
these
older
things
neighborhood.
move. I just again need to be sure I'm staying within my purview, and so if you're all in agreement, then I'll work with the city attorney as to whether it's a policy or whether we make an amendment to the
I'm back with
LDR.
something. I mean, 2 inches is not 6 inches. You know what I'm saying? So 6 inches I feel a little different about than 2. Mr.
And there's
Mark.
an ultra vires.
I agree with my fellow commissioners. I'm in favor of this.
Okay. And hearing no more from the applicant, we need a motion to approve.
Motion to approve resolution number 20-25.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Deputy Vice Mayor Long.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cassell.
Yes.
Commissioner Burns.
Yes.
Mayor Carney.
Yes.
Commissioner Marker.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Not that you're bothering, this is the point. But
Mayor.
the applicant shouldn't be going through, everyone's hiring everyone to come up here for an interview.
Is the consensus that if it was platted, then we have the discretion, or is it if it's 49 or higher?
I'm dealing with platted. I mean, if you're dealing with a platted lot where the pins, because the technology to measure those things in 1950 compared to today is just like,
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I just.
That
And
makes
plus,
sense.
in that area, which is over close to where the old dump was, there's a lot of movement around with the
Yep.
the subterranean
So if it's
stuff.
platted that way.
Yeah, I was saying on platted lots.
Thank you.
Okay, 7D. Considerations regarding execution of Vision 2035 and applicable consulting service involving Reef. Mr. Orris.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Jeff Orris, Assistant City Manager. The Commission in previous meetings had expressed some interest in continuing with the visioning process that the city's undertaken in the past. And thus, one of the things the city's done is we reached out to Reef, who does your annual retreat and that information, and asked them to give us a proposal for doing a visioning process, much like we've done in the past. You've seen the vision and reports. I know that we had one of them attached to this. There's been some others that have gone around via email. So you know the sort of thing we're talking about. Reef does have an entire scope that they have in this proposal. We can amend that or move forward with that as you so desire. Their scope includes meeting with each of the commissioners individually, meeting with staff to determine some of the ongoing issues, refining that a little further after having, I think they proposed 4 public meetings, whether they are focus group meetings with, say, HOA heads or board chairs, or whether we choose to do them as open public meetings to any and all comers. And then they have in their scope, refining that down to some of those things that are a little bit more understandable, and working those out through all the input into, again, another vision report, much like those we've seen, so we can update where we're trying to get here in the city through your vision and through the community's vision.
having been part of the two other visioning process, and most notably in 2012 for the Visions 2020, I mean, I see the scope of everything that they're proposing. I'm thinking that's a much bigger scope than what we really talk about. What we were talking about is, and I understand we can change the scope here, but while staff is important, staff is not, I mean, I see them interviewing staff and doing this. The whole point was to have the commission choose, to set up a steering committee. That steering committee to help define, what the questions they should get to the community, and then get 125 people in the community over a 1 or 2 day period to, thrash out all of the stuff that the community would like to see, the vision of the community, not the vision of the city, but the vision of the community would like to see, and then with that to create some kind of a visioning report. This is very detailed, where they're talking about, online meetings and all this. I don't know that we need all that. I think the face-to-face is really what's going to work in a visioning process, in my opinion. I'm sorry, sir.
Yes, so Mr. Mayor, after reviewing this commentary, the document from Raftalis, of course, I've had an opportunity to follow up since compiling the agenda transmittal, and they will be more than happy to make the necessary adjustments based on the discussion this evening. So this discussion this evening is an opportunity for the commission to be on the same accord with respect to expectations, so that we can advise them accordingly should you do decide to proceed with working with them as noted. So that's not an issue, that's not a problem. However, again, this is your opportunity to formally offer direction.
Well, each one of us may have a different view of what we want to see in it. I'm just using the one that we have done in the past, which was proven to be very, very successful without all these bits and pieces floating around, and just really getting the people, as I said, I think we had, each commissioner chose some people, and they ended up on the steering committee. I think Lula Butler was also involved in that. They had a couple staff people there, but it really was the city, the people that were appointed, that kind of came up with what the questions were, and then at that, back then, each one of the commissioners, I think, appointed
3.
No, more than that. When we did
According to the old report, it says 3.
No, we appointed at least 5. We had 125 people at the.
I think the.
Oh, you're talking about the steering committee?
Yeah.
Okay, well that's whatever the number number was, and from the steering committee, we then had the big thing where everyone chose 10 people, and had 125 people in the room plus others, and that was the visioning process. And I'm just saying, I don't know, having all of these virtual meetings and this, that, and the other thing achieves the same group collective in a room kind of working on a project than what we have.
Again, we have the capability of offering direction accordingly. So for that reason, my interest is to hear from the commission so that appropriate direction can be offered so that we can proceed from there.
Okay, you have a comment.
Well, my comment, Mr. Moore, would be that those people are the experts, and if they're sending you that letter and that's what they're suggesting, look, to be frank with you, I wrote to Mr. Moore and said, when did we agree on visioning? And he sent me 2 dates, and I watched the meetings and we didn't. There wasn't really a consensus to move forward with this. In the last meeting we had, and I don't want to put you on the spot, Anthea, but we discussed, and you and I discussed separately, that one of the biggest problems the city has is we have all these neighborhood plans that are obsolete. North Federal Highway plan is from the 1990s. We're having a visioning, asking people what they want in the city. We need to provide some kind of parameters for what is possible. And without staff's involvement, people won't know what do you want in the city? What is possible? What do we need? What can we have in the city? The staff has a very, very accurate understanding, and their contribution, I think, is imperative. And frankly, I, think we should be spending money. I don't mind doing this. I think this is a great idea. But we need to be working on our neighborhood plans. They're obsolete for almost 30 years.
They're different. Neighborhood plans are different than a visioning.
I understand that. But the neighborhood plans can help the people doing the visioning have an understanding of what should be going on in the city. It's about giving people more tools, not taking less away from them.
Well,
the staff is a tool in the visioning.
I'm not
The plans
suggesting
are a
that.
tool in the
I
visioning.
acknowledge that.
You're
The
doing the visioning without the tools. It doesn't make sense.
Well, visioning is one of the greatest forms of citizen engagement.
I totally,
that
and
we've
I
had.
think the
And-
city should be engaging the residents, and I love the idea, but why not do it right? Do not rush to
Well,
do it.
I thought we were doing it right. I think the 2 visioning programs that we had, actually 3, were tremendous successes. We ended up with Pineapple Grove Main Street, and the first one we did for Visions 2000. But all I'm saying is, it allows the people to say what they want. And they do have some guidance, because we're providing guidance, and your steering
I'd
committee
rather have
provides
the
guidance.
staff provide the guidance as well as us. I think it's important that the
You know,
staff
visioning
participate in the
is not supposed
process.
to be a strategic plan.
I don't think it's a strategic plan. I read the last 2. I totally understand what it is.
Well,
But if the person doing the visioning is suggesting that staff is a part of it because they're the experts and that's the consulting firm we're hiring, then I go with that. So I'm willing to do the visioning, but I would like to keep it the way that they've laid it out. And I would also like to talk about when we're going to update the neighborhood plans, like the North Federal Highway Plan. Because that's imperative. Yeah, but on our list, if we're going to prioritize what's the most important, that would be way more important than this.
okay, well, that's your opinion. So-
Just a question, like the neighborhood plans, if they do need to be updated, and I'm kind of new to this.
Right.
Is that something like you and your people would take on?
Typically, there's an outside consultant. I do think, though, that they're all, I mean, they're way outdated. So this type of exercise, though, could help us prioritize where to start with that. So if you have if this visioning exercise could break forward, like, we don't really need to redo this area because nobody even brings it up as having problems, but they're concerned about other geographical areas that might help us prioritize where to start on the. So it's useful. I think it's always a good idea to have public engagement. It was the consultant's recommendation that that if the steering committees come up with different topics, and there was always a steering committee in the layout here, offering participation either through some online surveys or things like that for the people who really can't leave a job to come to a 2-day visioning thing, or aren't part of the 10 people who each person invites, however you ultimately structure it, helps make sure that we're reaching everybody who wants to voice their opinion. And that came back to us from Raftellus, and I thought if we can afford to do it, we should include it. So that would be the only thing I would offer. Is I'm used to what the mayor's described as all-day workshops and things like that, but the younger generation doesn't always engage that way. So I think it's great if we can do both.
But to your point a second ago, so you already kind of know where the priority areas are. So this thing doesn't have to be bigger than Ben-Hur. We can prioritize what the top 3 or 4 are and work on those.
I think that the point of this is to hear from the residents and the stakeholders in the city what they think is where we should start, or
Each neighborhood has their own dynamic, and they feel, the beach has its own concerns, and Osceola has its own concerns, and Lake Ida has its own concerns.
That's fair.
And the whole point was we try to develop a master vision for the city. I understand that the neighborhood plans are sorely out of date and need to be updated.
Right, but we talked about that 3 months ago, and we haven't done anything since. So let's formulate a plan to update those. Let's go chronologically, which one we're going to do first, and start doing it. It's I'm fine doing the things that are on your list to do, but let's also do the things that are a priority for the residents, and that's one of them. Those plans we're making determinations on a 1996 plan. That's nutty.
May I ask a question?
You may ask a question.
Thank you. Anthea, did I hear you say that the process with Raftellus would give you a start to work on these, or a place to start working on the neighborhood plans? Did I hear that?
Mayor, if I may. So, and I throw this at you because before I came to the city as a consultant, these were the sort of things I did, these plans, not necessarily visioning plans, but neighborhood plans. Generally, the way you would work this is you would do some sort of a visioning to get input from the community on what they want you to do.
Right.
I can tell you, as having been staff at a number of different places, we will see things that are important, but that's not always what's important to the public.
Right.
So the visioning will really help us prioritize
Thank you.
based on
That's
what they think.
Thank you.
One of the things I'm a big believer in, you can't go wrong when you go to the public.
Right.
They're driving everything.
I agree.
We want to stay on top of what they want us to be doing. But certainly a process like this is very beneficial. It can set, as a matter of fact, even Ms. Geniotis is pointing out to me in one of our previous visioning reports, on page 14, it specifically says, review and update existing plans and create short and long-term goals from them. So that is an outcome from the visioning. The visioning is the big 50,000-foot view. Then the plans get down towards the 25,000, 10,000, and such.
Right, and that's the 2020 plan, and that's quite exactly my point.
Well, no, I would say
the 2020 plan
the
is
items
saying
we focused on in that plan really were Pineapple Grove. They did not focus on North and South Federal Highway. They didn't even, I think we touched a bit on Congress Avenue, but we really didn't.
right, but we've done a plan for Pineapple Grove. We had the study done for Congress Avenue, and that's kind of my point. We should be keeping up with these things as we go, and we're not.
May I chime in?
You may chime in.
I mean, these, no offense, they seem like two separate issues.
Right.
So I agree that a visioning plan should be led by residents and have limited staff involvement. No offense to staff, it should reflect residents' priorities. That seems like a great tool to then use to prioritize our neighborhood plans. So I'm all for moving forward with this the way that the mayor has described. However, I would like to make it accessible to people, frankly, my age that may work full-time and want to be part of the conversation. So however we can do that, where it's not like a 2-day retreat or something, I just don't know how realistic that is for folks that work full-time. And I want their involvement. I don't want
I'm not saying that we're in the same environment as we were
Correct, right.
back in 2012.
So however we can make that accessible, I'm in favor of the appointing residents and moving along with this. And then after that, after we have that information, using it as a tool to then do what Commissioner Casal has been talking about and address these outdated plans, but with that information in hand.
Commissioner Markert.
I agree with Rob. I think, the strategic plans always start at 50,000 feet and then you work down. And that's what I think the attempt is to do here. That's the right formula. I agree with what Rob said. If you're retired, you can probably make a 2-day meeting, but that's asking a ton for anybody that's still working. That won't happen. So I agree with you on that.
They were on the weekends. I'll just point that out. It wasn't like in the middle of the work week. It was, and it was a 1-day. The one we did at the Visitors 2020 was a 1-day on a Saturday. We started late and ended it, so it was a 1-day.
Rob wasn't even born then.
Back in 2012. Well,
I just say make it all available. I can do it all.
I'm happy to look at new technology. I'm not. My big thing is just to get out there and let's get started with this, because I talk to people all the time and they don't feel they're being listened to. They don't feel that, and true, not true, perception, reality.
Right.
I just want to have a process by which people think they're engaged in, setting the direction for the city. Because I have different things than they do.
May I just read this line from the report, the proposal? They engage the purpose to engage city staff in the process. They develop and administer an employee survey, solicit input and organizational missions and values and other priorities that should be considered as part of the planning process. I don't know why I want to do this, but I don't want to exclude staff from it.
If I may, ladies and gentlemen, staff, given the general direction relative to steering committee external engagement, staff will play some role in this regard. However, we have the ability to update the scope to take under consideration all the points you've all just raised. So if the commission was comfortable in this regard, and also just to clarify a communication you and I had, Vice Mayor, a few weeks ago regarding consensus, not consensus, etc., the commitment of the Office of the City Manager was to get to a place in which we can have the City Commission offer some sense of guidance and direction, which is why we're here today. So my apologies for any misinformation or
That's fine.
misgivings that may have transpired in that regard. But the entire focus was to get the commission to come together, offer some vision, direction, and guidance with respect to the matter, because quite frankly, the prospect of a Vision 2035 exercise has come up in at least several meetings in recent months. So I took that as guidance to bring this matter before you all for review and consideration, given the relationship that the city of Delray Beach has with Reef as a consultant the past couple years, assisting us with a number of areas. The learning curve would be pretty short to get us to where we need to be. So I'm prepared to work closely with them over the next few days based on what direction you all are providing this evening. So I would appreciate that for once and for all so that we can get to work accordingly. And again, to support commentary by Ms. Geniotis and Ms. Orris, a visioning exercise begets other opportunities for neighborhood planning and other strategies that may prove beneficial in that regard. That is absolutely a standard practice to get to the place in which we can all be productive. So I welcome the opportunity to move forward.
Is this a consensus or do you need a motion?
I'm confused.
It says consideration. I don't know that.
Not Miss Orris, Mr. Orris.
So,
You said miss.
so can I just get clarification on how you're planning to proceed?
Yes, ma'am. If authorization was granted this evening, I will contact Reftellus, have a discussion with them in the next couple of days or so as to update the scope to explicitly define the expectations having been aligned here. I would have the authorization to execute that. From there, I'll offer a timeline relative to steering committee appointment and other details necessary to facilitate the process. So that would likely be before you all in the next few weeks or so. So with that, that would be part of the process or some initial
So we'll have
steps.
an updated scope of work to look at. Is that what we're really talking about?
I will provide that, and that is something I would ask you all to give us the opportunity to update that administratively based on the direction you all being provided at this time, as opposed to coming back to you all back and forth in that whole bit. I don't think that's really necessary. We understand what's being outlined here. Copious notes and minutes are available so that we don't miss a step in that regard.
What is it that you're understanding then? If you're not coming back to us and you're going to approve it
The understanding is
administratively?
simply along the lines of what's being discussed here. The focus be steering committee driven, that there's members input from the committee. So for example, one of the paragraphs, I'm paraphrasing a bit, references the notion of spending time with staff to come back and get input, etc. That would be a function of the steering committee possibly, as well as members of the public, once they engage that process to get to that place. But again, I'll speak to them in general so that we can
Why
define
don't you
that
just
specifically.
bring us back the scope and let's vote on it? How about that? Wouldn't that be easier than having this discussion? And thank you. That would be my recommendation.
So we need a consensus on something.
Correct.
Well, I mean, so
That's
is
the
it
problem.
consensus? Do you want to come back with, before we vote on this, before we can?
Yeah, I think we
you
should
wanna
bring
see
it
what the scope,
with
the revised
their
scope is going to be?
contract laid out for us, and let's vote on it. That would be easier for me.
If that's the consensus, I'll
If you
bring
don't
that back
mind.
for the March 11th meeting.
Perfect.
I
Thank
think
you.
it's easy to do, but we'll start that process next week as I intended. And an authorization will be made available for you March 11th based on the feedback having been provided. So to support the Vice Mayor's concerns, do we have formal consensus to proceed?
Yes.
Yes.
Correct.
Thank
And
you.
for the record, I'll be absent at the March 11th meeting. So I'm saying in general, I am supportive of moving forward with the statements I've already made because I won't get to vote.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Staff is useless. Okay. Resolution 2625, amending the fiscal year 24-25 budget.
A
That would be-
resolution, oh, sorry.
Huh?
I was gonna read the caption, sorry.
If you want to do it.
Resolution of the City Commission of the City of Delray Beach, Florida, amending its budget for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2024, by providing for supplemental appropriations in the amounts identified in Exhibit A, repealing all resolutions inconsistent herewith, providing an effective date and further purposes.
Thank you. Mr. Dokowitz.
We're here on resolution on recommended actions with including the encumbrances. I'd like to go through my memo, starting with number one, the garage fund, if I could. construction fund had a $550,000 item for a mobile barrier for emergency response. This was in the CIP. Included in that was a $306,000 matching grant. The decision has been proposed to take $244,000 of that $550,000. Thank you. Of that $550,000 and utilize it to help us acquire a replacement fire apparatus. So on the sheet in Exhibit A, $306,000 would be a decrease of revenues because we would be relinquishing the matching funds that we would normally expect. In the second block there, we will use the remainder, the $244,000, as an interfund transfer to the garage fund to help acquire the fire apparatus. That results in a total $550,000 decrease for the mobile barrier from the CIP. Okay?
Yes.
Next, we have on the second page of Exhibit A, we have the capital lease reimbursement. We're looking at total revenues in the garage fund of $1,405,864. That is the acquisition price for the new fire apparatus. If you look at the components of how we are funding that, the $244,000 is the interfund transfer I just mentioned from the general construction fund. The $136,278 is an interfund transfer from the insurance fund, representing the proceeds from the insurance on the damaged apparatus. The $1 million, $25,586 balance will be utilized through a capital lease reimbursement. We're in the process of entering a lease program for various vehicles, and the fire apparatus.
That's a lease purchase program for various vehicles.
Lease purchase, I'm sorry if I didn't say that properly. So that's how we have the three components that add up to the $1,405,864 for the fire apparatus. Are there any questions on that, or should I move on to the other items?
I might have a question for Mr. Moore, and I want to thank you for finding that money without going into our reserves, because I was not amenable to doing that, and I appreciate that. How does that capital lease reimbursement work?
That will
How
be
are
the
we getting that
presentation for
million?
7F.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry.
So 7E is the budget adjustment, 7F is that presentation,
Yep.
and we are explicitly in position to discuss how that works
Okay.
by way of Mr. Dakowitz as well as Ms. Missy Barletto.
Thank you. I'm
You're
sorry.
welcome. That's okay.
Okay. Thank you. Let me go on to the other items here. We have Water and Sewer Renewal and Replacement Fund, $2,100,000. This is basically a line item transfer within the department where we are requesting a transfer of $2,100,000 into the Water and Sewer Renewal and Replacement Fund to start the Reclaimed Water Area 5 project, and it's just a shift from one line item to another. There is no increase to the Water and Sewer Renewal and Replacement Fund. Question? No questions. Number 3, our favorite. Encumbrances, $58,093,263. My understanding about rollovers is that when we complete a fiscal year and not all the purchase orders have been completed and goods and services acquired, those funds can be rolled over to the next budget year. What tends to happen is in early October, the budget is transferred to allow the budget spending. the expense moves, if you would, to the budget. The budget is not like our general ledger, books and records, where a debit and credit have to be implemented at the same moment. So that was implemented in October, which gave the departments the ability to use that budget and to complete those purchase orders in the beginning of fiscal year 2025. What we're proposing right now here is the revenue side of that entry, so that already the expenses have been moved into the budget, and we're now moving the revenue side to complement that so that the budget stays in balance. That's what the 58 million is for. There's a separate sheet which describes all of the funds, the amounts they're getting, and all of those GL accounts are revenue accounts.
May I ask you a question? I want to thank you for clarifying that the expense aspect was already moved over, because I wasn't clear on that, and that was concerning, because obviously that would make your budget look quite different. But back to the exchange you and I had when you first got here, and this was something that I had going on with Mr. Dunkley and Ms. Fazine, who's no longer with us. The $830,500 that we did not move over in that original encumbered money, which should have been encumbered because they're purchase orders, which is encumbered money. Where are we seeing that?
My understanding is that those were moved without budget, without the funding, so that the appropriation was increased,
right?
But they would have to pay for it with the funds that have already been passed in the adopted budget for fiscal year 2025. So out of something like 59 million, 58.1 million was moved with budget,
right,
from the prior year. So in essence, it's a way to increase this year's budget.
Well, what it is, in essence, was a way to make it look like we had greater reserves when we were going out looking for money from lenders. The $830,000, that is encumbered, rolled over money. And there was an email from you and your department to that effect. But I guess my question is, what's next with that money? Because my understanding, and I could go back and try and find that email, was that at a certain point, we didn't actually roll over encumbered money. We withheld it. So we look like we have greater reserves.
Encumbered money, the point is, we finish fiscal year 2024. We count up the revenues minus the expenditures, and we have a surplus or a deficit.
Right.
If we have a deficit, meaning the expenses were larger than the revenues, it has to be filled because we have to work with a balanced budget. And this year, that was filled with about a $5.5 million drawdown of reserves. And again, that's not even finalized.
Here's your email. The net effect was that 1.7 million of rollovers were processed in the general fund, but 830,500 were held to ensure that the unassigned fund balance would be at least 21% on September 30, 2024.
Correct.
But where?
So it's, well, let me just go through the process again. So when we finish a fiscal year, if we have a surplus, the reserves increase by the amount of the surplus. If we have a deficit, the reserves are reduced to bridge the gap. It was determined that we needed those funds to not reduce the reserves.
So we held them back.
Such that we can accommodate the new policy, my understanding, of having reserves between 21 and 25%.
Well, it's actually not a new policy, but I guess my point is, I brought this up before and I'm saying it again, it's highly unusual. Accounting, correct? For a budget?
What's highly
Holding
unusual?
back that money when you have it encumbered and not putting it into the budget to make it look like you're at 21% because you're going out for loans.
I can't comment. I'm really,
I know you don't. I don't want you to
so
comment
pretty
because
new.
you weren't here when this happened.
Right.
But when people make comments about how the finance director departed because I questioned him a lot, these were the kind of things I questioned him about. and they're not. This is not a normal practice. It's deceptive. Excuse my language, because that's the only word I can think of. The financial position that we were shown at budget time, and that people who are giving us loans were shown, was deceptive. Thank you. I'm sorry. It has nothing to do with you, but it's just making that statement.
I would just say, in my experience in other government organizations, rollovers are reviewed very intensely, and generally more are not rolled over than are, because it's really a backdoor budget.
Exactly. It's a backdoor budget.
Okay, so the point is, the budget itself should be more straightforward.
Right.
That says, here are the numbers for each department. And then, actually, I only saw this beginning with COVID, when we had the supply chain problems and people tried to get goods and services and the vendors couldn't supply it on time. So we then rolled over some of those items to the next year. But generally,
Right.
at the end of a year, if there's a surplus, it comes into the reserves. And if it's a deficit, unfortunately, you have to reduce your reserves. And hopefully, if we budget better with better forecasting and numbers that the departments can use to satisfy their needs, then the rollovers become a smaller issue. And I'm hoping in the future that that's the way we approach budgets.
Thank you. I'm sure, I feel confident that you will approach the budgets correctly.
Well, with 8 weeks, thank you very much for your confidence.
You're welcome.
I'm not as confident as you.
I
I'm
am.
working on it. Okay?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So those were the encumbrances, and the last piece was the $2,045,000, of which unused capital project appropriations from the approved CIP. The appropriations have lapsed. This is much more common because capital projects tend to be multi-year purchase orders. So if you have unused and available purchase orders on the capital side, they traditionally just get rolled over without any problem or issue. So staff requests the unspent budgets for previously approved capital projects totaling $2,045,086 be added to the current fiscal year 25 approved CIP budget by increasing revenues and expenditures in the following funds. And it's just, there are listings of all the details. They just roll up into these 4 funds. Any other questions?
Mr. Long, any questions?
Nope.
Mr. Marker?
None.
Mr. Burns? No?
No.
Okay, then we need a motion to approve resolution 26-25.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes
Thank you.
unanimously.
Thank you.
Now 7F.
A resolution of the City Commission of the City of Delray Beach, Florida, approving the issuance of a purchase order to 10-8 Fire and Safety LLC, utilizing Sourcewell contract number 113021-OKC for the purchase of a new fire service vehicle and equipment, authorizing the city manager to issue the purchase order and take any and all actions necessary to effectuate the intent of this resolution, providing an effective date and further purposes.
Thank you. Ms. Barletto.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Missy Barletto, Public Works Director, along with my partner here, Henry Dakowitz, Chief Financial Officer. And if you ask a lot of questions about the fire truck, we'll call Chief Martin up here. So just to give you a little bit of background, the fire rescue ladder truck 2009-50 was involved in an accident on December 28, 2024. You may have heard of that. Insurance declared the truck a total loss in mid-January. So you know, this truck was 15 years old. It had more than 100,000 miles on it. It was being used as a frontline truck for Fire Station 1 because of the changeover with Highlands Beach, where they kept a newer truck as part of that changeover. This truck would have normally been used as a reserve truck. It would not have been a frontline truck. But because this truck was used as a frontline truck, our reserve ladder truck 2003-50, which is significantly older and as the mechanics would tell me, a maintenance nightmare, had been utilized as the reserve truck for all of our ladder trucks for the fire stations. We have 3 ladder trucks that are frontline trucks. One we keep in reserve as a backup for when one of those other trucks may be out of duty. Okay, so as a result of the accident that took ladder truck 2009-50 out of service, we placed our reserve ladder truck 2003-50 into active frontline service. It served well up until last week, where the brakes went out, and they've been working intermittently. So this particular fire truck, because of its age and the amount of wear on it, it experiences frequent maintenance issues. I think it's back in service now. So this is an actual picture of the replacement unit that is available to us. It is a Pierce Sabre 75-foot ladder truck. The total cost of this is $1,405,864.00. That includes $25,000 to replace some of the loose equipment that was destroyed in the accident, as well as an additional $15,000 to put City of Delray Beach graphics onto the truck. This truck is ready to go. This is a picture of the actual truck. This was taken at a recent fire conference where 10-8, the company that we're purchasing it from, had it on display at the conference. And it is actually sitting in Pompano Beach waiting to be delivered to us should you approve the purchase this evening. The delivery will be 1 to 2 weeks, and the graphics will be applied to the truck prior to it actually entering service here.
Just for context, the way the industry works now, delivery is normally 2 to 3 years. Wow. There's a special situation where this was built for someone else, and we were able, and then it came back on the market, so we're very fortunate in that regard.
You can keep the microphone because this is your slide.
Oh. Okay. Let's make sure the numbers are still where they were.
Be good.
$136,278 for the insurance payment. That was $236,278 value determined based on the age and the mileage, minus a $100,000 deductible. We have the $244,000 transfer from the CIP fund for the mobile barrier that we are not going to acquire. And then the capital lease, $1,025,586. Is this the time for the capital lease program?
Yes, it is.
Thank you. We've been working with our financial advisor, PFM Advisors, Public Financial Management, and they have helped establish a program on behalf of Delray Beach where we can take vehicles that we intend to purchase. Also, because you've passed a motion with an intent to reimburse, we are allowed to include some prior purchases. That's IRS rule. If you have the legislative body pass a motion of intent to reimburse, we can purchase, and then after we close the leasing transaction, we can take some of that money and reimburse ourselves. So there were 1 or 2 acquisitions prior to the leasing program. We now have a total leasing program, I believe, is $9.1 million, including this new fire apparatus. And the way it works is very simple. We had an auction with various bidders through an RFP. That said, how much would they charge us in order for us to lease to purchase? So what happens is there's an implied interest rate in the calculation. Obviously, we selected the firm that had the lowest interest cost. And what happens is we get the cash up front with which we purchase these vehicles. And then over time, we're making payments, lease payments, at the end of which we own the vehicles. I believe we're looking at 6 to 8 year terms, probably an average of 7 years. So it's similar to when we issue bonds. You issued bonds for $20 million last year, or is it 10?
10 out of the first
10 out of the 20.
Based on the GLB obligation,
Right.
authorization in March of 2023.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
So with that 10 million, we get the 10 million from the investors, and then we pay back principal and interest payments, probably usually twice a year, over the term of the bond. When you're acquiring fixed assets of a life of 30 to 50 years, a school, a sewer system, something like that, you tend to borrow for 30 years. You try to match the term of the asset with the financing. If it's a shorter term, let's say it's an asset that only has a 15-year life, we would tend to borrow with 15-year bonds. So in this case, based on these vehicle lives, we have a term of about 7 years. We'll get the cash up front, and we will make payments, principal plus interest, but the interest is after an auction where we get the lowest price that's being offered. It is a tax-free transaction, so it has to comply with all the IRS rules. Questions?
So, any questions?
No.
Any questions?
No, just to point out that there was a time where we didn't lease vehicles, and because we could afford to just buy them outright. Now, I know you're going to say no, that's not the case, but
No, I'm not going to say that.
oh, okay, good, thank you.
What I'm actually going to say is that prior to COVID, we were in a position to outright purchase our vehicles because in our every year budgeting, each department pays a rental fee for the vehicle that they have. During COVID, for 2 years, those rental fees were not charged to the individual departments. So the ability for us to pay cash for the vehicles that we need is not there right now. This program gives us an opportunity to catch up on that couple of years of deficit and puts us back into a position with the changes that we charge in the rental fees, puts us back into a position to go back to doing cash purchases at some point in the future if that's the commission's desire.
Are we charging the rental fees now?
We are. And we have been.
We have been for the past 2 fiscal years so as to help replenish the fleet management fund because it's been below where it should be, and the process that Ms. Barletto just summarized is helping us to build the fund, and we'll address this more so during the proposed budget process for 2025-2026 as well. We'll offer some more intricate details as to the better health that's being experienced as a result.
I'd be curious just to know what each department is paying in, because in light of our budget cuts,
That will be part of the proposed budget process as well when we have an analysis of revenues and expenditures, applicable transfers in that regard. As we examine the fleet management fund specifically, we'll be able to show some data to help address that specific question.
thank you.
You're welcome.
I look forward to
Okay,
that.
we need a motion to approve.
I move the approval of resolution number 4325.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes.
Thank you.
Unanimous.
Do we need to do any kind of motion for reimbursement like you referenced?
No, all
We don't
squared
need it?
away.
That's squared.
Dead.
The next item is 7G, which was handed out to you. By the way, I want to thank staff who really did work overtime.
Could I ask a favor, Mayor? Because
Sure.
I Are you asking us to vote on this tonight?
Yes.
I'm not voting on it until
Don't
I
vote.
read it.
That's your choice.
But we haven't read it. It's 20 pages.
It's not. What the length of it? I'm sorry, Mayor. Can I?
I haven't read it, Lynn.
The
Excuse me, Attorney Jellin. I don't know when everybody did put this together, and I'm more eager to get this done than anyone, but I'd rather call an emergency meeting in 2 days and let me read it. I don't think it's
14 pages of it are legal.
I would like to read it all, though,
It's a
before I
two-page-
vote on it.
It's 2 pages.
Mayor, respectfully, I don't know when I wish someone would have emailed me this afternoon.
I take full responsibility. I was out of the country.
I understand.
was town, and yesterday I did work on it. Anthea had sent it to me while I was away, and I just didn't have an opportunity to review it. I worked on it, and I had finalized it last night, and then this morning I've just been in meetings all day. So
Is it
I'll take full
unreasonable to call an emergency meeting for 20 minutes and we'll bring it in and vote, but give me the night to read it? I'm tired. It's 8 o'clock. We've been here since 3, and I want to thoroughly read something I'm voting on. I am fully in support
I'm ready
of
to vote on it.
these
I'm ready
things.
to vote on it.
Do you want me to read the caption, Mayor?
Would
Would you like me to read the caption into the record?
You're not going to give me that courtesy and just call a meeting in 2 days.
Here's what my issue is. We are moving forward with, plans to try to preserve Atlantic Avenue. There's some gaping, we're trying to stop the aggregation of properties, or at least if they do aggregate them, they're gonna have some special rules to aggregate. Secondly, we wanna take control of the facades, right? So we can ensure that the facades are gonna, because we wanted to make sure that those are good. The third was demolition, although demolition really isn't a real issue, because if you demolish, you gotta live with the new regs, which is gonna be very hard to do, and people can't, or if you even add on, you gotta be able to park it. So, I just think it's important that we, if we're really serious about doing.
I'm super serious about it, Mayor.
Don't vote. I mean,
That's
actually-
not fair. You're handing this resolution to me at the meeting at 5 o'clock and asking me to vote on it, and I haven't read it. I don't think that's reasonable. City Attorney, I don't think that's reasonable. Call an emergency meeting. I will show up here tomorrow and vote. But I want to read the item before.
I share that comment.
Thank
I want
you.
to read it.
Just let us read it.
I've just told you exactly what it says.
He hasn't read it, and I
If
haven't
someone
read
files
it.
an application tomorrow, that you're okay with that.
Can we hold
I
off
know
on
I'm not.
accepting any applications for tomorrow and have an emergency meeting?
You keep talking
Well-
about, everyone cares about historic preservation.
Mayor, if you should forewarn us before you're putting something to vote on the agenda at the last minute. I apologize, but that's not fair. In fact, you were quoted today in Randy Schultz's article about how you don't want things thrown on the agenda last minute without having the opportunity to
I didn't see
review.
Randy Schultz's article.
Well, you are quoted in it.
Okay, well,
I would just like the opportunity to read it. I'll come in tomorrow and vote.
I agree
have
with
no
that.
problem.
I'll read it tonight and ask any questions.
I have a
you might
full-time job. I can't just come in tomorrow, guys. Sorry. I did have time to read this. It's super short. I think we should just vote on
you
it.
call
It
in
literally just
virtually?
covers what we already talked
It
about
is
at
exactly
length at
what
the
I'm
last
saying.
meeting.
We
We already talked about all this. It's not a new thing. We went through
We talked
all
about
of
it last
this.
week when we added it to it. We talked about the aggregation of properties, we talked about protecting facades, and we talked about demolition. This puts teeth into making sure that it's.
I'm 100% in favor, but I want to read the thing. I want the opportunity to read it. I don't think this is reasonable at all. I think it's remarkably unreasonable for you to put an ordinance in front of us and ask us to vote on it without reading it. That's irresponsible.
Resolution.
Excuse me, thank you. It's a resolution. Because I haven't read it, so I don't know what it is.
It's
Mayor, I'm asking you for a professional courtesy to give me till tomorrow to read it. If you want, Mr. Long, could you Zoom in to a meeting tomorrow? I will come here tomorrow. 3 o'clock? Could we come at 3 o'clock tomorrow and vote on this tomorrow at 3? I can be here at 3
Can
o'clock
we even do
tomorrow.
that?
This
Like,
is the best single thing
can we
to
post
stop,
a meeting for
to,
like?
to preserve
You
Atlantic
didn't
Avenue.
put that on the public notice or anything. I
Not
mean,
required.
okay, but I
This
would
is
like
the
to
best
read
single
it.
thing to preserve
I'm sure
Atlantic
it
Avenue.
is. I have all faith in it, but I haven't read it, and you stuck it on my desk at 5:05
and Tom,
tonight.
Tom, there is a difference of opinion on that. on that being the best for the city.
No, there's not really.
Well, that's only your opinion.
And you keep saying, and everyone's saying, oh, all the
You're
city
getting
wants it.
upset. You're getting upset.
No.
I'm just having a calm.
Give me the data.
We talked about this earlier
Give me the
today when
data.
we went through Robert's Rules of Order. We need to stay calm about this.
I am calm about
this
it.
This isn't personal.
I'm not making it personal.
Well, it feels personal.
But I'm saying that this is, I mean,
Julie and I supported a much stronger historic preservation tone than you did, apparently.
excuse me, which would, if you had to choose between a historic district, I'm going to ask the city attorney. If you had to choose between a historic district and what we're proposing now, which is stronger?
Don't put her on the spot.
I'm asking, she would know the answer.
Don't put her on the spot.
The reality is, we had a consensus at the last meeting, and this is a result of that consensus.
Which is stronger?
Candidly, I think based on the Atlantic Avenue limited height area plus this, I actually think this is stronger.
I know.
And I don't dispute that. I
'Cause
just
I've
want
had-
the
I've had
opportunity to
historic
read
people
it.
study
It may
this.
be great.
I just read it while we were sitting here, and I finished reading it. And I'm not available tomorrow after 1.
I move to remove resolution number 4525.
What?
I would just like to read the caption to the record
Please.
since it's not on the agenda.
Please read the caption in the
Thank
record.
you. I don't just want to hear myself. Resolution number 40.
Excuse me, but we just went through this training today.
Irrelevant, apparently.
Apparently, it's irrelevant. I mean,
What? We have
you have commissioners up here that want to take a little more time to digest a very important
One day.
issue for the community of Delray Beach.
Right.
I don't find that to be a crazy request.
No.
I just want to do what's right for the residents.
With respect, we just had a whole workshop on this, guys. Could Ms. Jellin please read this into the record so we can move on?
Resolution number 47-25, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Delray Beach, Florida, recognizing that the City of Delray Beach is considering amendments to the city's land development regulations with respect to aggregation of parcels, demolition of buildings or facades, and architectural style changes on certain property zoned central business district located along East Atlantic Avenue, as more particularly described herein. Providing that during the pendency of the city's consideration of the new LDR amendments, the city will defer the processing and approval of all applications proposing to aggregate parcels, demolish buildings or facades, or change the architectural style of a building located on the properties along East Atlantic Avenue, as more particularly described herein, and providing an effective date.
You know,
Can't give us a date
I made a motion.
review it?
Craig, a second, please.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor for discussion. Okay, that we learned that today, right? So,
This is what we asked for.
we had an at-length
Literally what we
discussion
asked for.
last week to discuss putting these items in for them to start putting it into the regulations. What this is doing is it's creating a zoning and process, which is saying, okay, we are working on this, but meanwhile, we don't want you to be able to aggregate properties. We want to have control over facades, and we want to have control over demolition. So we can wait and then have someone apply, and of course they won't. The zoning process won't be in favor of them because there'll be nothing in place.
Call an emergency meeting for tomorrow after 3, and I will happily vote.
There's a motion and a second. Can we please take the roll?
I would like to read something before I vote on it on the residents' behalf. I apologize.
We've spoken at length about this. This is a result of a consensus that we had.
We did speak about it, but I would like to actually read it. I'm sorry if that bothers you. I
It doesn't
apologize.
bother me. I'm just tired of having this, relitigating the same conversations over and over again up here. It's a waste of everyone's
No one told us
time.
this was coming. This is a surprise.
It's
surprise.
It's a
Here
big
you go.
important issue. In the
Vote on
corporate
this
world,
that
we
you
would
haven't
take a
read.
day, we would take a breath, and we would talk this through. We don't jam it down the throats of the residents. That is not
ourselves.
the right thing to do.
Well,
We're asking for 24 friggin' hours
Right.
so that two of us can digest this a little bit more and make sure it's right. That's what this is
I may
coming
have
down
something to input. I don't know, because I haven't read it, and I'm not voting on something I haven't read. And the fact that no one thought it was that everybody thought that was okay to just put it here and ask us to vote on it without reading it.
Out of fairness, it was a timing issues. So I'm happy to explain it if anybody
I would
wants
like
an
to read
explanation.
it, Lynn.
But
frankly,
to be
it's
honest,
8
I think
o'clock.
this actually
You let Lynn
protects.
talk.
I think this actually protects the residents.
I appreciate
Because
that,
the
but I want to
concern
read it.
from my standpoint, if I had been here last week, I would have voiced it. The concern is when people become aware that changes are coming to the code that could negatively affect how they wish to pursue their property rights, they might be in a position to start submitting applications in order to preserve those rights. The mayor knows this because we have an issue with this right now. You know, even though you're not entitled to the law as it currently stands, you know, if you submit an application, then you are. And so this is essentially a moratorium. This is just a timeout.
At 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, anytime till
Commissioner
12:30,
Burns and I cannot be here
and then
tomorrow.
well, she
We're not
didn't
calling an
say that.
emergency meeting.
Then let's stay tonight.
What else needs to be discussed that we haven't already touched on here?
Do what you, if you're prepared to do it, take us through it.
Okay,
Take us through it. Let's talk about it for a few minutes. I'm not coming in tomorrow.
Let's go. Let's go.
So essentially, if somebody wanted to submit an application and they wanted to aggregate 4 parcels on the Ave, by instituting this evening, they would not be able to do that for a period of either 6 months or until such time as new LDRs are adopted. So this is going to give staff the opportunity to analyze this without having to worry about receiving applications, because technically, unless we do a zoning in progress or a moratorium, we would have to keep accepting applications that could potentially affect the impact of what the ordinance you want to adopt is. And so what this is it's a timeout. And all it does is essentially it's going to protect the direction of the commission, and for a period of 6 months. We are able to extend it if we're still actively working on these ordinances. But what it does is it protects our ability to maintain the direction of the commission from that workshop until we adopt ordinances. And so if you don't do this, then yes, people can submit an application. If you get an application that wants to combine 4 properties, because of the way that our laws are today, they are able to do that. And there's no protection to stop it, absent making a finding that there's not competent substantial evidence. And so this is usually done when we're making these sweeping changes to the code.
Right.
And I would have recommended this. We've done these in the past. I believe when you took office, we were just in the midst of finishing one up.
Yep.
And so it's more protective in order to be able to effectuate the change that the commission directed staff to make at last week's workshop.
Okay, so I'm more comfortable with that. So this is just this is a stop.
It's a timeout. It's a stopgap. Exactly. And it doesn't mean that you have to adopt anything. It doesn't mean that you actually have to do anything, but it just protects us while we're doing our analysis and preparing these ordinances for the city. It allows the staff to be able to basically focus on that and ensure that what you guys want to what your vision is for the Ave and what the vision is for those regulations can come into fruition without having somebody who's going to submit an application that could potentially affect that vision.
Okay, I'm much more comfortable with that.
And again, I apologize. I
wish we had just approached this issue the way we normally do.
Understood.
And not throw it in and.
We didn't have time.
Well, we do have time. We can't let time force us to make bad decisions for our residents. We can't. We got voted up here. We have to make time, period. Yeah, do I want to go home and watch the FBI? Yes, I do. But I got voted here.
What's the FBI?
It's a television show.
Efren Zimbalist Jr.?
There's 3
Is
of
there
them.
a new one?
There's 3 of them. Ask the chief.
That would be what you're watching.
It is.
I watched Yes to the Dress, so I don't know. What do I know?
That's sad.
Randy to the rescue.
That's sad.
No, I don't know any of that. I just know the names.
So I apologize for getting a bit angry, but I really appreciate your explanation. I'm far more comfortable with it now than I was previously, so thank you.
The whole purpose of this was to prevent somebody from doing something. If everybody is really determined to preserve Atlantic Avenue, the biggest single issue was aggregation of properties.
I understand.
That is not, by the way, in historic, you don't get that protection.
I understand.
This is I hate to tell you, this is a stronger measure than we have at the moment with historic, under every measurable thing, plus, but they're not getting the tax benefit. I mean, that's essentially, I mean, this is a gift. So, whatever. So, where are you now, Julie?
I'm reading it.
Oh, okay.
So
We
give
got
me
time.
a few moments.
Okay.
Take your time.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I knew because I used to do this. I'd see what they were doing. I'd come in with an application.
Yeah, I understand.
How long do you think this will take, Lynn? Attorney Jelen.
to draft the ordinances.
That's a staff thing. I mean, you've started on it, right?
So
I know it should be done by now. You've had 3 days.
I mean, look, it takes time. I mean, it has a process. It has to be drafted. It has to go to any of the advisory boards that it affects, and then planning and zoning board. That takes a month before it gets to here. So
gonna be a lot of
it takes a
public
little bit
input,
of time, and this does provide, and I want to make this clear too. There are buildings that are in this area that already have approved changes that are not going to be affected by this. They have the right to develop those changes that have been approved. Building permits that are in the review process and other things. So I just want to make that really clear. If you see changes, it's not that we're not paying attention, it's that they had already established changes to the buildings. So, but yeah, it does take a little bit of time to draft it, get it right, and just move it through the public process and the public hearings that amending the LDRs requires.
So it stays in effect for 180 days
Or the passage
until we
of the
have the
thing.
LDRs, and then if we get to the 180 days, we renew this.
You can extend it like we did with in lieu.
You either extend it or you decide you're not going to make any changes. And it does give you time. The changes could be that you're establishing the district. The changes could be aggregation, but not the other things. It gives us time to sort of draft it out, bring it to the planning board, and then bring it to this board.
And all
as
these
well.
pages 4 through 20 are just property descriptions. I don't have to read all this.
That's all legal descriptions of the properties that are affected.
All right.
I
I
did
would
not
just
cross-
say to you,
I did not
in the
cross-reference them
future,
either.
I would rather not have something dropped in my lap to vote on at 5 o'clock when the meeting starts. But I will vote on this.
Just to make it clear to anyone who's watching, this is not the permanent ordinance that is going to be adopted on this front. This is a 6-month stopgap, which is why I was comfortable voting on it last minute, because it's a temporary measure to keep things basically the way that we want them until the LDRs are done.
Right.
I just want people to know that.
I don't
By the
like
way, if
voting
we-
on
if we have a
anything I
problem,
haven't
we can
read.
vote- we can terminate this at
We
any
can
time.
change it.
Anytime.
We can change it.
Anytime. Just so I know what they're up to.
So we have a motion and a second.
We call the roll.
Would you like to call the roll? Would you want a roll call vote, everybody? Can we do up and down? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Fine, we're done. Now we have the second reading of the parking ordinance.
Ordinance number 03-25, an ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Delray Beach, Florida, amending the land development regulations of the City of Delray Beach Code of Ordinances by amending Chapter 4 zoning regulations, Article 4.3 district regulations, general provisions, Section 4.3.3 special requirements for specific uses by adopting a new subsection PP, private parking lots, providing a conflicts clause, a severability clause, authority to codify, providing an effective date, and for other purposes, and this is second reading.
Okay, this is a city-initiated amendment to the land development regulations that was done at the direction of the commission. Mostly related to residents' complaints that we're getting surprised by tickets, confusion. Public Works is regularly being contacted with complaints about the cost of a ticket for a lot that wasn't a city lot and that we did not control. So this is sort of setting up rules on how to handle private parking lots as a business. There are a few regulations that govern them, but there are some recent state statutes in place. So this is not solely a Delray Beach issue, clearly, that there needs to be signage that's clearly placed and legible when you come in. Certain regulations, including that you must post that the property is not being operated by a governmental agency. You have to have the rates for the charges that you would incur if you violate them or the rules. And then email and an active email address, ways to deal with complaint, and what is the appeal process. So a lot of the state statutes are on these blue signs that you see everywhere. There's a private company that I think is working with a lot of the private private business owners. And you'll see here, this little box will say like it's $125 if you don't adhere to their rules. And then everything else is a kind of a myriad of ways that these types of properties are regulated. There's a bit of sign proliferation. So I didn't know that this was the parking, but then other people complaining that they're covered in signage. So what the ordinance seeks to do is basically require signage at the lot entry, but it's very specific that it's one sign at the lot entry, not multiple signs at the lot entry. What the rate and the operator information is that you're one sign for every 10 spaces. You can put signage on wheel stops. There are other regulations related to entities that tow that are regulated by the state that have to be done. The main thing is that this ordinance also puts forward you can't look like you're a city lot. There is a small sign that is required to be posted that says not a city lot. This type of added sign makes it easy to retrofit some of the signs that are already there. This ordinance requires this within a certain time period. It also requires that you post your rates, what the penalty is if you overstay, what the grace period is, how you contact the operator with a manned telephone number, and other things, QR codes. One of the biggest pushbacks we had from the operators is that the fee isn't always the same every day or every time of the day, but if you're going to have an event rate that's $20 an hour, then put it on the sign, so somehow or another. So again, not more than one sign at an entry. Some of this is it's important so people aren't surprised, but then how much is too much type of thing. There's also regulations in this that talks about if you're using a kiosk for payment that and your lot is open at night, it needs to be illuminated, it needs to meet sort of those SEPTED principles and making sure that the lot's in good condition. People are going to be able to walk safely through it and all that. You cannot use City of Delray Beach logos on your signage. This is just all intended to really serve our residents and our visitors well, so they don't get an unpleasant surprise when they come to the city. There is a provision as well that in historic districts or historic properties that there's a little more leeway with the design of signage to better reflect that. So again, this is intended to support comprehensive plan policies about visual compatibility with non-residential properties in terms of the signage, but also making sure that people understand what the rules are. So this has been through a number of boards. The DDA reviewed it in August of 2024 and recommended approval 7-0. They were one of the entities that was concerned about the proliferation of signage. Historic Preservation Board saw it. They were going back and forth in terms of whether just standardized signage was better or not. Ultimately, staff left the leeway that was originally drafted for historic districts that they could take it or not take it. And then Planning Board recommended approval 5-0, and I'm here if you have any questions.
This is a public hearing. If there's any members of the public who wish to get up and speak on this matter, now is your time, Mr. Knight.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, Deputy Vice Mayor, Commissioners, I just wanted to make sure, Anthea, I think there's a state statute that says on any lot you're allowed 15 minutes free. Is that clear on the signage? I thought there was a state statute that was passed a while back that said if you go onto a lot and you're there 15 minutes or less, they can't ticket you. Are you familiar with that?
I was unaware of that statute.
If there's a state statute in the contract for what the rules and the penalties are, then that would be posted in the contract signage that's already out there, and whatever the rules with state statute would be checked. I don't recall them off the top of my head.
Pretty sure that's out there because I brought that up and I talked to, somebody from it. But if that's the case, I just want to make sure that these people know when they're charging that if you're in and out in 15 minutes, you don't get charged.
You have to post notice of the grace period and the appeal process. So,
Did we look at that, City Attorney, just to make sure? That's got to be a...
Is that the grace period that you're talking about? Because the 15 minutes, that may be it.
That's at the end.
So that state statutes still apply whether or not the LDR reiterates them or not. So if this is your business, we'll check it when you come in for your BTR and your signage, but you should be aware of whatever the rules are and post them clearly.
Well, then, do we have a motion to approve?
Just a quick question. Would hypothetically a resident who gets a ticket in a private lot that isn't following the rules, like if they don't have the red sign up or something, would they have any recourse based on that? I know that we would fine them, but would the person who got a ticket from them that had an improperly marked sign, for instance?
The problem is the appeal process. It's basically, arbitration. And so there is an appeal process, but they would have to pitch their case to whatever body is decided upon by the private lot. We are preempted from doing a lot, and so this is really the best that we can do to be compliant with Florida statute.
Do our police we don't give tickets in the private lots, right?
No.
Okay. So when they get an infraction, it's between the car owner and the parking lot?
And it's whatever, typically they have like an arbitration provision or something to that effect, which, if you've ever gotten a ticket in one of these lots, we get the complaints, so we know that they're unfair, and, the ticket price does go up.
So if someone's going through that appeal against a company that isn't following Delray's rules, it doesn't help them? That has no...
It helps, in the sense that we have an ability to bring them to code enforcement if they're not in compliance. They can go to the state, the state attorney general, their office was prosecuting these predatory practices.
Yeah.
But honestly, that's about the most that we can do.
Gotcha. I mean, I think this is all great. I'll be in support, but I wish we could make more. I wish these efforts trickled down more to the end users and the people that are being victimized by these lots, unfortunately. But I think this is still great, and shouldn't let perfect be the enemy of good. That's all I got.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, it's a public meeting. No, we should, please call the roll.
We did.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I'm just call the roll.
Vice Mayor Cassell.
Yes.
Commissioner Burns.
Yes.
Mayor Carney.
Yes?
Commissioner Marker.
Yes.
Deputy Vice Mayor Long.
Yes.
Great.
Motion passed.
Okay, we are done. No first readings. Comments and inquiries on non-agenda items. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, ladies and gentlemen. Actually, I have two items fairly brief. First of all, I was informed earlier this morning that by the Palm Beach County Sports Commission that they have an interest in possibly collaborating with the city of Delray Beach to host the Davis Cup. Something similar to this effect occurred back in April 2023, the Billie Jean King Cup, etc. So what's being contemplated is an event in the month of September of this year, September 2025. We will likewise offer a brief presentation regarding this consideration during your next meeting, March 11th, 3 weeks from today. So I just thought I'd share that information with you all publicly tonight. And quite frankly, it is an exciting proposition. Thank you.
I mean, Davis Cup, that's big. That's big.
Yes, sir. So we'll be before you in 3 weeks to help
men, right?
facilitate
Men.
that consideration.
Yeah.
Again, quite exciting.
I want women's tennis there.
That's the Fed/Billie Jean is the women's.
That's exactly right.
Davis.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
The second item, I would like to secure the City Commission's support on a practice that served both myself professionally and other organizations quite well via previous city manager positions, and that is having the opportunity to hear about questions from commissioners that may be asked publicly of me, maybe a day or so in advance of experiencing them. The purpose and intent to this effect is to be as thorough as I possibly can. I've always prided myself on being a very responsive and attentive fellow, personally and professionally, and I think this will assist in that regard. Frequently, questions are asked of the office of the city manager during the course of the city commission meetings, and at times I am on point, usually try to be responsive and attentive. However, I am at a deficit because, of course, some questions are highly analytical and involve necessary information gathering so that I can adequately respond. So I would like to have that opportunity to work with you in those regards. Again, that served me extremely well, and other organizations I served as a city manager, and therefore I would like to support that process here in the city of Delray Beach.
So what do you propose, like by a Monday, on a Tuesday meeting, you would have questions?
Sure, a Monday evening before a regular city commission meeting. So let's say, for example, the next commission meeting is March 11th, 2025, no later than the evening of March 10th, so that I can work with the respective department directors, gather whatever information, or just for my preparation so that I can adequately and thoroughly respond. So that would be my interest in that regard, and I don't believe that's a lot to ask for. What's great for the commission and the organization is responsiveness and thoroughness. So I would appreciate it.
Well, that's in line with us asking for the presentations on a Friday afternoon, that we all know what all the presentations are going to be.
And I don't need to, by Friday, the evening before will work just well, and
No,
I would be very happy to
okay.
offer my guidance and support.
I'm very much on board with that. I more or less already do that, as I think it's professionally courteous to do that. But I think that making that sort of something we all agree to is a great idea. And I'd add, I think we should also include our staff directors as well, within reason. I mean, there's going to be always issues that come up on the spot that we have to bring folks up here for. But I think not just with the city manager, but with any of our administrators that we may have specific questions for, we should attempt to discuss it with you first, to discuss it with them.
Work with
So
the city manager because of the
correct.
council manager
I think
from
we
the
should
government.
try to avoid dragging people up here to get into in-depth issues that they haven't been briefed on or had any chance to discuss beforehand. It could eliminate a lot of very long, very awkward conversations that we tend to have during these meetings. I think it could help make it a lot more efficient.
I mean, obviously, there may be last-minute questions where somebody can't do that. But, I mean,
Correct.
I think as a policy, I think that would everybody kind of
Yeah, we're just gonna have to get all the agenda attachments well before, Monday.
Sure.
because
Or if there's items not on the agenda that you may have a question about not pertaining to a
I
particular
usually
topic.
email you, when I bring up questions up here, they're questions you have been emailed, so I have no problem with that.
Okay,
Thank you.
so we have consensus? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
I yield at this time. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
City attorney.
Very quickly, on the agenda this evening, there was a confidential settlement that was on consent with a recommendation for denial. I typically don't do this publicly because we do have a mechanism for it, but we are under some trial deadlines. That recommendation was for $132,000. This is the individual who was riding her bicycle and turned into one of our city vehicles on Linton. She was found to be at fault. Nevertheless, the offer that was rejected today was $132,000. Her lawyers have come back with $125,000. I still have the same recommendation of denial based on the facts as I recited them to you in my confidential memo. But because I do need to advise them, I just need to know if the commission is inclined to entertain that offer. My recommendation would be a denial.
We're going to go with your recommendation.
I always go with the attorney's recommendation in these cases.
Yes.
Don't always go with them.
Well, 90% of the
Depending on
time.
which attorney, right, I understand
So
that.
can somebody just make a motion to deny the recommendation of $125,000?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Done.
Thank you very much, that's it.
Is that it? Yes. Okay. Angela Burns, would you like to go first?
Oh, sure. So let's see. In reference to the training that we had today, an hour and a half is not enough, but I would hope that we can really start to practice these Robert's rules and get in the swing of run our business, our meeting in the business manner. And also, I asked a question in regard to the attacking a member or questioning, and I think the response was basically for this group. But I would like, and then he alluded to Mr. I can't remember his name now. Tim's Wynn. Thank you. Alluded to that it would be the body's decision to include, for instance, the city manager, city attorney, and our staff. And I would hope that we can agree that we would be respectful in that manner of not attacking members of the staff or anyone on the dash during our meetings, that we can keep those things private. So that's it. Wanted to say congratulations to the Delray Open. And there was one other thing that I wanted to mention, and I can't remember, so I'll yield. Thank you.
Mr. Marker.
Yeah, I want to echo what Angela said about the tennis tournament. I spent a lot of time over there, and I want to thank Mr. Metot, who was working 24/7 crazy hours, and his staff over there. It came off beautifully. I can't tell you how many residents came up to me and just said they were having a great time with their families there, and The tennis was superb, and I know the city puts a lot into this, and I just want to say thank you to all the people that were over there, and there were a lot of volunteers as well. And they put in long hours, and it's just an amazing community event for a city of 70,000 to have a major tournament like that is just super special. That's it.
Commissioner Casal.
Yeah, I'll echo that as well. Thanks to the Barron family. The event gets better every single year. I love it. Match Point, City Parks and Rec, CRA, all the volunteers, and certainly the sponsors. Also want to recognize Maruska because Laura Simon got up and spoke, but boy, the events at the Cornell have been amazing. And, you know, to our police chief, once again, I feel frustrated sometimes sitting here when people come in and make comments because I know there's so much going on behind the scenes that you're doing that people don't even know. And as a mom with a 15-year-old, I know what you're doing to keep drugs off our street. And I really want to thank you, both of you and your entire department, because there's so much going on that people don't know about, but I do. And I really thank you from the bottom of my heart as a mom. Code enforcement and subculture, I don't know what's going on. I think something's going on, but it's a constant complaints about subculture. And they're not unreasonable because I get video footage, images, and everything to go with it. We have a problem. We need to resolve it. It's been going on too long. I don't know what you're doing. You don't even have to tell me, but please tell me you're doing something, and please do it because this is just out of control. I don't know what we can do, but the violations are daily. Mr. Moore, could you please email us and let us know when we're going to have the Citron Cooperman report for finance, Citron Cooperman report for Highland Beach, the report for the driver's licenses in the fire department. I would like to know when that's coming. The PBSO accident report, it's done, but we don't have it. And I would like that. I had talked about why can't we record the negotiations that go on when we're negotiating these contracts, and maybe we hold them till the end because people don't know. It was hard for me to hear the gentleman get up here and talk about our gentleman being the lowest paid in the county, second lowest paid in the county. Now, sometimes that is a byproduct of the fact that everybody else has just rotated their contract, so they're necessarily increasing, and we're at the bottom. But when we're talking in our private room, that is not the case. So when someone's getting up and saying that, we've gutted our pension. We haven't gutted our pension. When someone's saying our guys are the second lowest paid, that's not the information we're getting from our staff. And I don't know if we're understaffed or not, but we need to figure that out. Because if we're not understaffed and officers are telling our residents when they're responding that they are understaffed, that's a problem we need to address. And I have heard that before where people will say an officer arrives at the house and says, I can't do anything because we're understaffed. Even if we are understaffed, our officers should not be saying that to a resident in responding to a criminal activity. They should be coming to you, and you should be coming to us, and we should be figuring it out. That's not something that a resident should be saying to us. So maybe we need to think about if we can record these negotiations, because I think that these are very hard. We want everybody to feel respected, appreciated, and properly compensated. But we also don't want to feel the pressure of making a determination based on information that's not accurate. And that concerns me. And by the way, I will say, there was a strange gentleman walking around my neighborhood last week. I have a young child, and she's always around. I did not call the police because I did not want I didn't want to call and get special treatment. I never call when I have a problem in my neighborhood. I don't call. I let a neighbor call. Within 2 minutes, 4 officers and 4 vehicles were on the scene. So I don't feel like we are, not serving our residents well. And I want to thank you. And lastly, the Reef presentation was amazing tonight, and I hope people do appreciate it's 2 different things going on. And what I would like to be talking about funding is outplanting into our reefs in Delray Beach. I think it would be a great thing for us to do for our city, and I think we should consider it. And I would like that on the next agenda to discuss, if we could.
Do we have consensus to put it on the next agenda to discuss? We do have consensus.
That's March 11th? Thank you. And so we could have Lenita do a presentation with Mr. Edwards. Is that possible? To have a brief presentation?
I'll begin organization with Ken Edwards beginning tomorrow so that we can prepare accordingly to include some potential considerations regarding resources.
Thank you. I'm beyond excited about this. And that is all I have to say. Thank you so much.
Mr. Long.
All right, I got a few things, most of them quick. I spoke with the Chief Legislative Officer at the Florida Dental Association, as well as the Manager of Grants Administration at the Delta Dental Community Care Foundation, and we're going to be having a meeting on Friday to discuss potential grant opportunities to fund our fluoride equipment for the city. So we could get some money towards those improvements that we need to make. I will follow up with you guys as soon as I have that meeting. Also, I had reached out to, separate item, I reached out to Brian Rusher, our former planner, who is currently Assistant Director at the TPA, and he's been working with staff, and we are going to be having we're going to be visiting the different railroad crossings in our city on February 26th to establish if there are certain safety measures that we can do. An FRA inspector is going to be with us, and so I'll report back after we do that as well. So we are working on that. And I wanted to also congratulate Chief Razor. Sorry I missed the retirement party today. I was tied up. I know he went on to greener pastures in Manalapan. And so I want to also repeat what my colleagues have already said. I missed most of the Delray Open, regrettably, because I was traveling. I was there just for the VIP event the first night, on Tuesday, I mean. I heard it was awesome, and I want to thank Match Point. I want to thank all the volunteers. I want to thank Parks and Rec and anyone else in the city who was involved. I've only heard good things, and it's come to be expected at this point. I wanted to briefly ask about what the Rainberry Woods folks brought up regarding lights. I know they're probably FPL lights, like we've had that issue in many areas of our city. We had it in my neighborhood, and after we spoke up, we ended up getting new lights, lo and behold. So I'd love it if we could maybe chat with FPL about that issue. That's a really important issue for residents. And okay, so I want to address Mr. Kasanjian's comments from the PBA briefly. I am deeply concerned about the current level of attrition and that potentially continuing with our police department. I am very concerned with morale. We would not have had that many officers in the audience tonight if there was not a morale issue, period. That is deeply concerning to me. Now, we have been going through a negotiation process, and I will not get into the details of that because it's a legal process we're still in the middle of. However, I believe that process is yielding diminishing returns at this point. I think we are walking down a dead end. Frankly, that process is not working, and that is not to disparage any of the folks involved. That's the process that we've been using for years through these negotiations. Nothing against our attorneys, nothing against our staff. It's not working, though. It's this siloed approach where there are not decision makers from both sides in the room. I do not want to wait until this issue gets worse. I do not want to watch it go to impasse, watch us lose more officers while we figure this out. I think there is still room for negotiations. These are our city employees. We are a house divided right now. I want to figure out another method. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know if it's possible. But I can't just sit here and pretend like what we're doing, which isn't working, and just continue to walk down this dead end. I think there is a pathway. I don't know what it is. I'd love to hear ideas from anyone on what that looks like, to have a conversation where we have decision makers from both sides in the same room at the same time, having a real conversation, looking for a way to work this out for the sake of our residents, for the sake of our department, for the sake of our city. So I'd love to hear what anyone thinks.
May I, Mayor? I would like to ask the city attorney if that's procedurally appropriate, but also I would like to say, when the gentleman was speaking about attrition and what have you, losing people, our HR director was responding that was not accurate. Now, I think we need to maybe be asking those questions, but I don't want to assume that that's the case coming from, that gentleman necessarily. I think we should get that information inside versus outside of the city. But, I mean, do you have a thought? We gave our last offer.
Retirements, it could have been anything. I mean,
Right, that's the point. It is, people leave because they retire, people leave.
I'm sorry. I have many friends on the police force that I speak to daily. There are people leaving. There just are. I'm not going to sit here and argue about that, but it is a thing that is happening. That's just a reality. And
When is our next meeting scheduled? We gave our last
Tomorrow.
offer. Oh, so there you have it. We have a meeting tomorrow.
Tomorrow morning.
Tomorrow morning, based on the most recent engagement. So,
are we going to do anything different? Or are we just going to keep doing the same thing we've been doing?
Does that engage us, or are you all meeting?
No, we're meeting with the union tomorrow to
Yeah.
relay to them the direction that
They'll
was
come back to
provided
us.
at the last meeting.
We don't have to do
You
anything.
get panicked.
Yeah, you have to be there tomorrow at 7:30.
6 a.m.
no, you don't. Don't
No,
even
I mean,
say
under
it.
the sunshine laws, none of you can sit.
Everybody's already putting
Right.
in their calendar, 7:30.
It's all or nothing,
So,
right? So we could all sit there. We just can't
Well, I mean,
if it was a public meeting.
I mean, it is a public meeting, so there's nothing to prohibit you from attending if you wanted to, right? As as a member of the public, you could go and watch. Would I recommend that? Probably not,
Right.
Because they do get somewhat contentious, right? Short of giving the manager more authority, I don't know how much more we can do. I mean,
we can't plan a meeting where we're all in the room with members of the PBA that actually can make decisions instead of the situation we have now where we're in a silo. We give information, we wait a while, you guys have a meeting, we get information back, and it's just this like weird back and forth.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I offer a consideration? And that is, allow the process to proceed tomorrow as committed. We discussed this during our last session as to what that looks like, and a great deal of clarity will be achieved in addition to other effective communication opportunities to outline why we are where we are, and from there, we can then follow up with the commission accordingly. I think that would be most prudent at this point. Otherwise, we hear you.
Right, and I'm not suggesting we don't do tomorrow's meeting or change the meeting that's scheduled for tomorrow, obviously.
Right.
But unless miraculously we reach an agreement tomorrow.
Long term, but we'll have a follow-up afterwards.
Okay, I would really like to have a serious discussion about this unless we miraculously have an agreement tomorrow.
Well, we have an opportunity to meet again.
Right.
If you want.
Right.
we are doing our information campaign, though, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay.
I saw it.
Which
Thank
is
you.
a function of tomorrow.
Got it.
Okay, I don't have a lot to say. I mean, actually, everyone covered it. I do agree with Commissioner Casal. It painted a pretty bleak scenario with the how the city is treating the fire, and they were looking at old numbers based on what they would have been had the other thing. But that's another story for another day. I wanted to consider, because I want Anthea to consider this, the concept of a master permit. We've had this conversation before, where and I'm going to use where there's a person building 10 houses. We're requiring people to get 10 separate permits, 10 separate things. I have an example of someone who's building 3 of the exact same houses. I knew she was going to get up. 3 of the exact same houses, and they had 3 separate sets of inspectors with 3 separate sets of comments. The one I'm in particular is, and I hate to be, I'm not looking like I'm defending Steve Michael here, but when you're having a situation where there's 20 permits for what do we call it, murals. Usually someone creates a theme of what they want to do, and then they allow them to do it.
Right. Usually somebody comes forward and gets permission for all the permits that they're going to paint on a building, and then we allow them to do it.
I agree, but there's no process where you can get a master permit on anything in the city.
But his were
It's
all different too.
the way that there's a perfect example. Okay, so the way that the mural ordinance works, it's per facade of the building. So one for each facade of the building.
Right.
If you've decided to do drastically different graphics, I guess it gets handled differently. But it's up to the applicant what they're trying to put forward. It is not up to staff what they are trying to put forward.
No, but
so if
there
it
is
was
no
one
mechanism- there is no mechanism to say I've got 10 buildings, 40 sides, and I want to do murals that are going to be kind of following this basic theme.
except that they weren't. They were drastically different panels.
Right.
And so it was just weird. Everything is different. For example, when you talk about a master permit, it depends on how you're applied. So Mr. Ladani came through. He did 5 duplexes in a row, which was 10 units. But he did not go through as a unified site plan of 10 units. He went through purposely because he could get more units and build something more consistent with the detached pattern of a historic district. Those, while they may look similar, they are 5 independent permits for 5 duplexes because that's how that project went through the approval
I am
process.
just saying that I think we need to make the
So-
process easier.
It's easier if
I mean,
applicants.
I know staff always defends, and that's fine.
No, I think that maybe it was just a poor example because, you know, my staff has been to 2 public art advisory boards waiting for that applicant to show up to defend his own applications, and he was a no-show.
Okay. Well,
So
I know
that doesn't
that.
make anything go faster.
Okay, I'm done with that issue. The second issue is the guy who came up the other day, who essentially said everybody up here was corrupt. We should always fire. Were you here for that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So that was one where.
Then he sprinted out
That
before
was
we
one
could
where I should have
respond.
shut him
You've already said this stuff. We agree.
down. Huh?
We all agree. You said it at the end of the night that you were going to shut him down. You should have shut him down, but he moved too quickly.
I know.
I was gonna respond to him, but he left. He
Anyway.
came one other time and like brought a doll that he said was like an original doll, it was like an Asian. Yeah, his ancestors were Murakami, and he brought a doll. It was like a ventriloquist act. It was great.
We were adjourned.
Thank goodness.
Who's watching?
Good night, ladies and gentlemen.
Banged it hard.
That was good.
You couldn't shut him down. He was so fast. It was like a hit and run.
He had good things to say about you. He said you were the good person.
No, he didn't. He said my neighbor. That's Marker. He doesn't live in my neighborhood. He lives in his.
Oh, well, he was looking at you.
Yeah, he liked you.
That's crazy.
You know, Angela